Pokemon Ruby and Pokemon Sapphire, only for Game Boy Advance, rated E for everyone.
Generation 2 was a big success for the Pokemon series, especially because it rode off the waves of the initial boom from Generation 1. Though, unfortunately for Game Freak, all waves need to crash. And around the turn of the millennia, plenty of new big franchises were taking off in the public eye, and taking space on toy shelves.
Oh my god. It's Obi-Wan.
Series like Star Wars pulled an incredible renaissance with their extremely polarizing yet extremely profitable prequel trilogy. And Game Freak bigwigs like Junichi Masuda were getting pretty stressed about it, to the point where Masuda had pretty bad stomach issues and nightmares stemming from the idea of Pokemon failing. Critiques from Generation 2 were also on the team's mind, as it was very clear that although it was successful, a lot of trainers had critiques on a lot of the more cutesy Pokemon designs, and the fact that a lot of the games seemed to just be riding the coattails of its previous incarnation. Game Freak knew things needed a big change to meet the new demands of their audience, and especially the big N as they were trying to get out their new console, the Game Boy Advance, which may have been actually what Game Freak needed to turn things around. But first, they needed a plan. After the success of Generations 1 and 2, it was clear to them that there was a good possibility of a Generation 4, so they started plans for that one fairly early on. Then it came to the matter of hardware. The GBA had no connectivity whatsoever with its previous versions, so there would likely be no transfer between the GBA titles and the Game Boy titles. So they decided a Generation 1 remake alongside a few side projects could be used to help keep that older audience invested, while also allowing older generation mons the chance to appear on then modern consoles. You see, at the time of development, Ruby and Sapphire were actually going to be more than just the latest titles. They were actually going to be undertaking a strategy we wouldn't see in practice till Generation 5's Black and White. Ruby and Sapphire were going to be a soft reboot for the series, with only new Pokemon appearing in its decks. And from what I've researched, this part of the plan was in the works for quite a while. From the very beginning, they wanted to expand on what a Pokemon could look like and what a Pokemon could be, which allowed them to really push the limits of their design philosophy. They wanted more cooler and more complicated designs to contrast the Johto look, which was cutesy and simple for better marketing. Groudon specifically being mentioned for its more intimidating demeanor and its complicated patterns etched into its body. The reboot idea also led the team to try and remake certain Pokemon like the Pidgey and Caterpie lines into the Tailo and Wurmple lines, so that they can use the same archetypes without bringing over any older Pokemon. This idea even stemmed into the theming of the region. When asked where Hoenn was in relation to Kanto and Johto, Game Freak admitted to kinda just imagining it as another world, which is probably why there's a lot of space-related ideas coming from this region. The game's names as Ruby and Sapphire were also chosen as a way to parallel the original Red and Blue. But of course this whole reboot idea would eventually fall through, as in later in development when Game Freak needed more Pokemon, they had to fill out the decks with some of the older ones because they didn't really have time to make any more, which is why the game is exclusively Generation 3 till after the first gym. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire were announced and revealed to the public during a Nintendo festival, before then being released in November 2002 in Japan and spring 2003 everywhere else. The games were a huge success, but not to the level of the previous titles. All the reviews of the games were pretty good as well, with particular places complimenting the graphics and the new gameplay details, though pretty much all of them also criticized how easy the game was and how it didn't really change much from the Pokemon formula. Ah, the Pokemon formula. Was it really getting tired all the way back then? My, that might actually be a really interesting topic to cover in one of these. Though, I don't agree that Ruby and Sapphire is the place to do it. So, let's talk about all the new gameplay added to the formula, and see if these guys knew what they were talking about. Starting off in the overworld, we got actually quite a few new additions, including the PokeNav, which works fairly similar to the PokeGear. This time, however, including a few new apps for the new modes like the contests and the berries. Though we'll have to wait till Emerald before we get the rematch functions, at least for gym leaders. Berries are an expanded version of them in the Gen 2 games, in the way they're found in trees and can be used in battle to heal certain effects, but this has been expanded to brand new varieties that can affect a Pokemon's stats, increase friendship, or even be used in another mode later. Though this time the player is able to plant and grow whatever berries they wish in new gardening sections found in the different routes. And as long as the player remembers to tend them every so often, they'll grow, allowing you to harvest whatever berries you wish. The player's bike's gotten a little bit of a reworking, now coming in two varieties. The Mach bike that helps the player move at even greater speeds than the normal bike, as well as speed up mudslides, but with the drawback of looser control and the inability to do tricks. The Acro bike is about as fast as the usual bike, and as such it can't speed up the mud, but it can perform fun little tricks that allow the player to access usually unreachable areas. The game also adds in overworld weather effects like sand, rain, and sun, and automatically set up those weather conditions whenever the player heads into a battle in those areas. All these changes are actually pretty substantial if you really think about it. The ability to grow and harvest berries is a fun side venture that can make battles and contests more manageable if you get good at it. Though the only real punishment for forgetting them is that they just restart their growth cycle, meaning you can't really lose out on any sort of berry species outside of you just, throwing them away. Though, even if you do that, certain NPCs can help you out by gifting you berries, including one that was snuck into the game by Masuda after his daughter was born a few months before launch, with the fitting Sapphire birthstone, which I think's kinda sweet. The new bike decision actually adds a little bit of fun to a playthrough, as now you get to choose whether you want to go through areas faster or do you want to take your time and explore every bit. It's fun, and with the only real drawback being you have to return to Rydell to swap them out, I think it's a fun little addition. The weather system adds personality to a lot of the routes. Maybe not all of its vibe, but like a little cherry on top. Though it's eternally funny to find a Pokemon living out on the desert or hail area that isn't immune to the damage from those weather patterns. What a messed up existence these Pokemon have. Why do you live here? Though this new weather system does give us a hint to a special snow area that was planned early on. I guess ice types were going to be found in more than just one gimmicky little cave once upon a time ago. And then the PokeNav, which is a nice little upgrade in many ways to the PokeGear, adding a lot of functionality and making certain extras like the berry growth and contest stats a lot easier to manage. But that's not technically all for the overworld, as we also got one of the most interesting and fun features in all of Pokemon. The secret bases. Found in these select hidey holes all across the Hoenn region. If you use the move's secret power, you're able to open up a little pocket dimension, and then set up / decorate a base for your own personal enjoyment, complete with different biomes inspired patterns based on where you opened it. This feature is just so fun and unique. I genuinely love the amount of times in Pokemon where they just give you a little area to customize to your own liking. It's so fun. A lot of these don't really have much use outside of just the visual factor, and we'll have to wait till the remake later in this video for a better version of this mechanic, but here it's a fun new way to play Pokemon with your friends. And speaking on that, the contests. Basically, an entire extra game mode with its own type system and mechanics and all kinds of other nonsense that I frankly care way too much about. Okay, so in contests, you send out your Pokemon against 3 other NPC mons to try and find out which is the cutest, the smartest, the toughest, whatever. The actual Pokemon doesn't really matter, as you can have a cute Slacking or a tough Sandshrew. The mon you put in doesn't matter. What matters is their movesets and, I don't know, their aura, whatever kind of vibe they get off, In the first round, it's a superficial test to see which monster looks the most like its category, which you can manipulate by using these berries in this extremely, odd minigame. Like, I mean, sure, I get my desired Pokeblocks most of the time, but like, how do I know what kind of berries these NPCs are just throwing in there? I mean, if you do like the multiplayer version with your friends, obviously you can all make the perfect type of block you need. But in-game, you just kind of use whatever the other guys are using, and you can do this by yourself for a way worse result overall. But like, I don't know, it's a fun minigame, I like it. But I guess I know why it was removed in the remakes, so you can just feed a Pokemon the color block you want, and make it more Sigma or whatever. And then natures and, I don't know, whatever this little sample text for a Pokemon also kind of affects these, but not enough to really matter. Have we talked about natures in this series yet? Oh, that's this video. Okay, I'll just finish that thought later. Well, the contest begins with like a vibe off between the Pokemon, with the one that most wows the crowd being the one that wins. We then move on to the talent competition, where everybody's talent is killing people like it's the Paris Olympics. So, in this mode, your moves now gain their new vibe types, and then you try to use them to wow the judges to get more of these little heart points, with the type of move you use either getting you higher or lower amounts depending on the type, as well as fill or cripple this little excitement meter. And if your Pokemon uses the right type of move at the right time, it will fill that meter and get all kinds of bonus hearts, which can be a massive help when you're aiming to win, though it's not necessary if you put together the right combination of moves to do like a combo, or use status moves to make your opponent just lose hearts, pissing themselves in fear, or just vibe checking them with your aura. Contests are like genuinely like really fun, and trying to come up with the right way to use your moves and then executing them with regard to the order your Pokemon will go in that turn. You can even manipulate your position by making yourself go earlier or later, and even affect other Pokemon's placements to make sure you're in the right spot to get a big bonus, or use a move that will heavily affect the opposing Pokemon right before you or behind you. And again, the combo moves. I love this game mode, and I get pretty toxic when I play it, to be honest. When an opponent flinches my Pokemon or just makes them cry, ruining their turn. Oh my god, Colonel, come on, you're better than this. Were all those talent coaches a waste? That was a lot of mommy's money. I swear to God, that Whismer is always trying to sabotage me. If I ever see that kid in the streets, I'm gonna... Oh my god, I sound like a pageant mom. Screw it, I'm gonna go ruin my child's lives and live vicariously through them. I want that trophy, you sick mother...
Ha! Almost lost my cool there.
Well, anyway, another thing I really like is how the different ranks were separated into different towns. That way it kind of feels like an alternative to the gym challenge. And me trying to balance my Pokemon's movesets to fit both purposes for battle and contests was fun, cause it led me to use a lot of really odd combos, like keeping moves like Scratch or Round for way longer than just 3 badges. This, on top of Pokemon built exclusively for contests, is a really fun addition to the game mode, and the types of utility a Pokemon and its moves can be. I seriously wish we got a game that focused entirely on a different aspect from Pokemon aside from the battles. But you know, you're still catching and training Pokemon kinda like you usually do, but it's for a different sort of goal, which is admittedly pretty vague to try, and you could probably fit it on like a few of the games we have already. But still, a contest-focused game would be so fun. It's really too bad we don't have these as big in later generations. It's in Sinnoh and it's cool in Gen 4, but it really only comes back in like remakes, you know. Gen 5 had musicals, but that's not the same thing. So the battles this time around have gotten quite the overhaul. First things first, we got more individuality for each of your Pokemon. Starting off with the aforementioned natures, which are basically a Pokemon's individual personality traits, which can help determine a Pokemon's stats for battles and contests. Now, don't get me started on all this, cause it also involves the newly introduced EVs and IVs, which is basically a new version of a stat that existed in Generation 1 and 2, but wasn't really worth discussing other than it made one rat different from another. And now it's this whole thing that can actually be grandfathered down from one mon to the next, causing this like intense Pokemon incest pit where competitive breeding is just constantly breeding the new offspring with its parents in a never-ending cycle to basically get yourself a rat that hits a little harder than a normal rat, or maybe it's a different color. Wow, Chubby, what a hugely complicated and time-consuming part of the gameplay that will go largely unnoticed and frankly vilified by the majority of the community. Yeah, this shit is too complicated for me. But natures can basically make one stat go up, another one go down, or it can do jack shit. It's too much. I think it's a little too much for me. Abilities are basically a lot like natures, except people actually pay attention to them, since these can completely change how a Pokemon can be used in battle as they give them a new functionality, such as allowing floating Pokemon like Weezing the ability to fly over super effective ground type attacks with its Levitate, or monstrous Pokemon like Gyarados the ability to intimidate the opponent, weakening their attack. Abilities are like really cool as they give very similar Pokemon a way to stand out from one another by giving them special powers that change the way they can be used in a team, even if those Pokemon are of the same species. Basically, abilities are cool, everyone likes them, except for me when I forget Gengar has Levitate till Gen 7. It's wrong, I don't like that he's poison, but he escapes the power of my ground domain. It's wrong! Next up, we got double battles, which is a more unique approach to the usual combat, as we now feature 2v2 combat, which just completely changes up the flow, making things a lot more strategic with now how you had to react to like both of your opponent's Pokemon on the field, not to mention trying to figure out what kind of synergy they have with one another, while keeping in mind your own Pokemon and how they can play together properly, especially with how some moves now gain multi-targeting properties. Because, you know, sure, Earthquake may be a great idea to damage the two opponents in front of you, but your other Pokemon could be hit by it as well. And if it doesn't defeat the opponents, then guess what? You've now turned this into a 2v1, and that's just not the optimal strat in the best of cases. So maybe instead of the all-powerful Earthquake, maybe run Rock Slide to avoid that issue. Or hey, use Surf, because in Gen 3, I guess the other Mon's just surfing along with ya. Double battles completely change the way battles are handled in an incredibly interesting way, adding all kinds of new dynamics that make the game feel fresh and fun, to the point where it's still the main form of competitive battling to this very day, which kinda makes me sad how little double battling is used in the main game. This is unfortunately a pattern we'll be seeing with Game Freak and alternate battle styles going forward, but you'd think at least, you know, more than one boss would use this strategy, that's all I'm saying. Also, ribbons are a thing, you know, these little things that are like attached to your Pokemon if they earned like an achievement, like beating the league, a contest, or like being an event Pokemon. Though there's plenty of ways for a Mon to earn one. It's mostly just like for bragging rights, which is kind of funny because most modern games just, you know, not have those in them anymore, which is really funny if you trade something up all the way from this gen to the latest gen. I don't really know about these, but what I do know is graphics, and Gen 3s are honestly pretty good. I like the look of a lot of the new locations. I think all the new trainers and Pokemon sprites are fun. The sprite palette is colorful to try and make up for the lack of backlight on earlier Game Boy models, which, side note, is actually a really funny thing to bring up, because technically the way I'm showing you the game right now and the way I showed Crystal last time was kind of inaccurate to how they would have looked on Game Boy hardware. Something like this is the more intended look for these games, and I wish I had known this sooner, as I would have played them in this style to help give a more accurate analysis on them. But you know, hindsight's 2020, either way I do think these games look good, as they're shown here and or on modern consoles, aka the 20-year-old 3DS and DS. Ooh, that kinda hurt to say. Though, if you were to ask Game Freak about the game's look, you'd probably be surprised at how they see it. You see, Game Freak had a bit of trouble jumping from the old gen consoles to the new ones, and this led to quite the resource cost on the dev side, leading them to design Generation 3 to be the most minimalist it could possibly be, while also making improvements on the visuals last time. This can clearly be seen with the new battle backgrounds, which for the most part are just kind of these blurry gradients instead of more detailed sets, like Game Freak had originally planned. Which is really funny because they'll reuse this style for the next 2 gens anyway, so they must have liked it well enough. Overall though, I do enjoy the look of Generation 3 and its added environments, fuller color schemes, interesting details, though I admit the lack of animation on the Pokemon is kinda odd after Crystal introduced them. Did I mention that last time? If I didn't, I really should have, because it's a fun addition that adds a lot of personality to the Pokemon. But also, I don't blame myself. These videos are so long. It's so hard to fit all the details in there, and sometimes you gotta really wonder if any of it's like really worth putting in there. But anyway, don't worry, as Emerald will add these back, so Hoenn fans can still see their little guys move and bounce around like they should. The GBA Pokemon games graphics are honestly really iconic to the fan base, and that even goes beyond the type of typical nostalgic appreciation you'd expect. Since Generation 3 came out in what I like to think of as the Wild West of the internet, before all the funny aquarium futuristic stuff was replaced with bland, concrete, big business shit.
I just wanna be part of your symphony. We hold me tight and
During this period was a lot of experimentation and expression with things like YouTube and MySpace, being these low-key spaces where people could just come together and do whatever in a fun little hangout space. Or at least, I think that's what they were. I was a baby through most of that, so I only really know the big corporate funnels that we know today. But when I watch movies or like see types of media from back then, it seems to just be so more, liberating in a way. That's not necessarily how it is now, but again, that just may be my own folly and my lack of research on this topic. But something I do know is how this affected the 3rd generation of Pokemon, as these games were basically dissected and customized to the point of actual absurdity. I truly believe in a lot of people's minds, Gen 3 style is what they think of when they think Pokemon, because of the amount of presence it has had in the community, from the tons on tons of ROM hacks to the skits and comics that just kind of use sprites ripped from the game to communicate jokes and stories, to the fact that these sprites are still the base of the main fan game Pokemon engine. Gen 3 style is immensely popular for the amount of longevity it has seen in the franchise from purely its fan audience, which is something I truly find fascinating, but I don't think I have the time to fully dive into it in this video alone. So I don't know, maybe get ready for some kind of other BS side video later. I don't know, this video's so long. But what I do know, actually, no, I don't really understand music. Sure, I know what sounds good, and I generally know what a hook or a note is and how music can truly immerse a player into an experience, or even completely sour an experience depending on how it sounds. But I don't truly know it, and I definitely don't know how it's so good in Ruby and Sapphire, because if there's one thing that GBA is known for, and not counting the lack of a backlight or the lack of buttons, it's the lacking abilities of its sound chip. It has led to some of the oddest sounding music I have ever heard in a video game. I can't say it's all bad, but it was a handicap on a musician's ability to craft music, even when compared to older consoles like the NES or the SNES. So a lot of GBA games had to either just deal with the lacking OST, or just go balls to the walls odd with it. Bring out the trumpets! Yeah! Okay, I don't know why trumpets were the answer for Game Freak's woes, but my god, does it work? Which is funny, because Hoenn's soundtrack was designed to elicit music from a more tropical area, and I have no idea where trumpets fit into that, but it just kind of works. The music in Hoenn is loud, bombastic, and honestly just confident, which I like. It's a high energy entrance to a new age of Pokemon. Hoenn's music fits itself perfectly as a tropical paradise. The music can be calming when it needs to be, mysterious when it needs to be, punchy when it's time to throw down, and also a bit more complicated as well. The theme you hear before you really get into the jungle really interests me, as it starts pretty similar to the other tracks before, but as you get deeper into the jungle, the song gets more depth to it, and I found that really impressive. It reminded me of this video I watched about the music in the TCG Game Boy games, and how it used its limitations as a jump rope to create some very in-depth music out of its unbreakable constraints. Basically, if there's anything Pokemon can do, it's make good use out of a soundtrack. You know, it doesn't. The mystery gifts in these games in Emerald work very similar to how they do in Gen 2. Basically, if you connect your game to a certain thing, you get an item. Mostly kind of just these little ticket things that actually take you to a unique area to capture a legendary Pokemon. In Ruby and Sapphire's case, we have the Eon ticket, which gives them the chance to capture the member of the Eon duo that's unavailable in their game, which can then be shared to Emerald, which basically gets everything else, including the Mew Island, which is hilarious, cause really, why didn't Fire Red and Leaf Green, have this? That's so dumb. It's dumb. It bothers me. It bothers me. But we also have an event system solely unique to Generation 3, the e-reader cards, which alongside the e-reader peripheral allowed you to get exclusive battles and unlock Pokédex entries, then in some games even unlock minigames. Or in Ruby and Sapphire's specific case, download a patch that fixes the notorious berry glitch, which pretty much messes up anyone playing on a save file for over a year by ruining how berry growth was supposed to work. This was so bad that they actually included this patch in all other Gen 3 games, so that as soon as Ruby and Sapphire were connected, that shit was fixed ASAP. Which is cool. A lot of this sounds kind of cool. Like this whole e-reader thing sounds really cool, right? Okay, kids, say it with me now. It's a Nintendo peripheral, so it failed utterly and was mostly exclusive to Japan. Yeah, very good, children. And good luck trying to get any of this stuff to work nowadays. I didn't even attempt it. Okay, let's talk about the Pokemon in Hoenn. Well, I guess I've kind of already said most of what I wanted to say about them. A lot of them are made to be counterparts to a lot of Kanto Johto staples of the last few games, this time with more complicated and detailed designs. Though of course there's a ton of newbies with no link to the past outside of a few who are kind of based on like older Betamons. I think the new art direction for the Hoenn monsters was a fantastic idea. A lot of these guys are some of the most fun and creative designs the series has put out, like even to this day. You got fan favorites like the Breloom line that's a mix of kangaroos, mushrooms, and fucking Luffy with those stretchy ass arms. Exploud, who's literally a sentient church organ with all the tubes and holes blasting powerful sound waves at its enemies. Bayonet is the reanimated corpses of all the toys children have lost over the years. Zangoose and Seviper have their really funny dynamic where they share plenty of design elements while also being rivals, and they weren't the only ones, as Hoenn features plenty of exclusive mons with similar themes to promote trading between games or emphasize the new double battle features. Hoenn is wonderfully full of unique Pokemon based on new concepts and ideas that's a refreshing take on what a Pokemon can be. And recently some pretty interesting leaks for Generation 3 have come out, and man oh man were some of these older looks just insane. We got gods, eldritch gods, robot hand gods, horror cacturn. Oh man. We even have a beta Spiel that's like a bowling ball that knocks over penguins. We were robbed. These leaks are super fascinating looks inside of Game Freak's mindset for these games, for better or worse. Though it is really interesting to finally see some of the designs that in my research were only loose descriptions, like a feathery Rayquaza or the weird water bush. Too bad about all the personal information though, that's the real bad part about this whole thing, not the dumb Typhlosion Diddy files, ugh. My favorites, however, Now that's a toughie. I guess it's between two of these newbies. First off, we have Deoxys. A sentient virus that's been mutated by different radiations from throughout the galaxy. This Ben 10 wannabe has all kinds of different forms it's able to swap to in order to fit any playstyle perfectly. Though in Gen 3, his different forms are actually version exclusive to all the games, which sucks. But in every other way, Deoxys just hits different. He's like an Eldritch Mewtwo, this extremely powerful humanoid Pokemon from beyond the stars, whose powers and abilities are hardly replicated by any other species. His amazing color scheme of red, black, and blue make him stand out in any sort of lineup. Or is that supposed to be green instead of blue? They actually done that a lot with the Gen 3 Pokemon, having completely different colors in modern games, due to the GBA just being so odd with colors. But still, Deoxys is an amazing Pokemon, and I've loved him ever since I watched his movie where Rayquaza blew him in half! Oh my god. The rivalry between these two is the funniest fucking thing in Pokemon. So if you don't know, Rayquaza is like the mediator of the Hoenn legends. He's the chill guy always trying to keep things all balanced and better for the world until this alien asshole shows up and it's nothing but hands. And every battle has like a reason whether Deoxys is about to destroy the world or disrupt the balance, but sometimes it's just because he wandered into the wrong neighborhood and Rayquaza's gotta check his pass. Because nothing enters Rayquaza's domain unless you're anyone the fuck else. All the other aliens and sky monsters are completely fine, but this guy? Fuck this guy. He should have stayed dead. 1, it's awesome watching them fight, and 2, it's so damn funny to think of Rayquaza as Earth's border patrol, but only for like one single alien. Damn. What did he do to make that lizard so mad? But no, my favorite Pokemon in Hoenn is actually Mightyena, and I have plenty of reasons for this. 1, I've always liked this stupid hyena ever since I saw it as a kid, because I love dogs, like, a lot. And Mightyena was just the coolest thing to my child self, like, ever. I feel like I don't have to explain this one. I mean, everybody has had that lone wolf phase. Let's just be for real. Though, I actually have a very personal reason for loving this Pokemon, but I think that can wait for our team section. For now, let's just discuss it as a Pokemon. And as a hyena Pokemon, it bothers me to the high heavens that it doesn't laugh. Like, why doesn't it laugh? Like, that is, like, besides the weird pseudo-penis thing, is what this animal is known for. Like, it's the main Pokemon between the evil teams, and it doesn't have an evil cackle. Like in modern gens, it gets snarled by evolution, which is kinda a vocal tick, but really, why doesn't it laugh? This has bugged me for, like, years. And if you don't remember, which I don't blame you, I don't know what I was smoking to make the video look like this, but I made a bunch of Pokemon, and one of them was an evolution for a fairy Sinnohan Mightyena that was an altered platinum. I did that because I've always had the idea of Mightyena getting a light side regional variant to match the Galarian Zigzagoon, and this game gave me exactly what I wanted, except it also didn't laugh. So I had to change that immediately. And if Game Freak won't give us what we want, then fine. I'll do it myself. Also, Mightyena is adorable. I love her, and the shared experience of the Oraz Mightyena one-shotting legendaries is just hilarious. I love that comic. Now, what about Hoenn as a region? The Hoenn region is based on Japan's southernmost island of Kyushu, meaning that it has a subtropic climate and is home to some of Japan's most famous volcanoes, and being the site for some of Japan's space technologies like rockets. This kind of climate and location is perfect to launch things into or out of orbit, which is another reason why the Hoenn games seem to have a connection to the outer space. Of course, being in this warmer, more tropical island climate, we get plenty of new kinds of locations that don't have to adhere to the more temperate climate like Kanto and Johto. We got jungles, deserts, and plenty of ocean areas to explore, even going physically to the bottom of the ocean to find and capture Pokemon, usually only captured by fishing. Hoenn exists to be in contrast to the original games, especially with its huge emphasis on the natural world and how it's balanced alongside the world of man. In fact, that kind of brings us to the theme of Hoenn, which is actually very progressive than what I would have thought for the early 2000s. Climate change. Yeah, climate change. Everything about Hoenn shows us the impact humanity has on the world for better and for worse. A lot of NPCs talk about things like pollution, which we flood our lakes and rivers with, that eventually flow into the ocean. The main legendaries are mainly based around the three big parts of our planet: the land, the sea, and the sky. The main villains try to take control of these massive bodies of our planet and are completely overwhelmed when confronted with their vicious, uncaring powers. Humanity has no right to try and control or warp this planet for its own selfish ends. We are just another piece of its puzzle like any other plant or animal. When the balance is off its kilter, then we see the uncaring forces of the planet run rampant. A volcano will burn everything in its path. A sudden flood will wash away everything it can get a hold of. A storm doesn't stop once it's destroyed everything. A storm stops when it feels like it. And though we try to act like we have no impact on any of these forces, the truth of the matter is we absolutely do. It is September at the time of writing this and recording this, and it is 95 degrees out. I live in the middle of the Appalachian rainforest. I shouldn't have this shit, but like once a year, and sometimes maybe twice, I don't know, weather's weird here, but it's never been this weird. When I was little, it would blizzard every chance it got, but for the last 5 years, I've worn shorts on Christmas. That's just wrong. Nature is beautiful, wonderful, and brilliant. But man, does it love to be an Old Testament God when it's time for us to receive punishment for our sins. Which is funny actually, as the Old Testament is exactly where these three get their basis. Groudon is based on the beast of the earth, Behemoth. Kyogre is based on the beast of the sea, Leviathan. Rayquaza is based on the beast of the sky, Ziz. Three powerful creatures believed to be made by God at the beginning of time, said to be unkillable by normal man, only being slayed at preordained times depending on the belief. If you had to create creatures to embody such things, then these beasts of chaos would be the exact right place to start. And in the remakes, we see their more demonic forms. Man, that kicks the shit out of the last game's theme, right? Just wait till Sinnoh. Woo! You theology majors are gonna get a kick out of that one. Ruby and Sapphire's post-game offerings are actually pretty cool. As per usual, we have the legendary hunts, primarily around the secret third legendary called Rayquaza and his stupid little tower. It's always a pleasure. Splish. But we also have the three golems and the fact that you need to know Braille in order to figure out how to find them, which is really fun and super unique, and I just googled it. I mean, yeah, these videos take long enough to make. I respect the effort though, good on ya. Though maybe I'm the reason they changed it to spinning and whistling in Sword and Shield. Depending on the version, you can also go for one of the Eon duo who start roaming around your game. And let me tell you, I do not love this mechanic, but I searched for Latios for hours, just so that I could run away from him. Yeah, that'll be a nice change for these wait, no, ow, you petty little bit! The battle tower also makes its return and is very similar to the one we know in later gens. It has single, double, multi, and mixed battles from level 50 to 100 with randomized trainers that when defeated reward the player with BP or battle points, which can be used to spend on rare items. It's fine, just kind of a stock standard post-game offering, but we've had worse. Alright, you guys know what's up by this point. It's time for story, aka the majority of the video. In the Hoenn games, we play as two characters, known as either Ruby/Brendan or Sapphire/May. Though for this venture, we'll be in the role of Ruby, and we start off where most great stories do. Rattling around in a high-speed moving truck. Ow! 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 Hey, where did you guys get your license again? Hey, that's not an answer. Wait, you didn't tie down the fridge, Oh, I'm sorry you had to ride in the truck, honey. You know that gym leader's salary can only afford 2 plane tickets. Oh, I'm just surprised we were able to drive here at all, considering this is an island nation. Right? I just chose this brand because it was cheap. I didn't believe they'd go so far and beyond. How was that, by the way? Ugh, it smelled like... Let's just go inside. Oh, look, honey, the mover's Pokemon have already got most of the work done already. Yeah. Hey, speaking of the mover, where is he? I got a few, words for him. Oh, honey, he's not here. The Pokemon drove you to the new place. You know, I want to be mad, but frankly, I'm just impressed. Good on you. Okay, so Ruby and his family had just moved here from the region of Johto for his father's new position as the gym leader of Petalburg City. Now, why move to a completely different town for this job is completely unknown to me or his wife, who doesn't seem to do nothing but neglect Ruby and wish her husband was home. Yeesh. Well, I guess it is nice to have a father in one of these games for once. After making our way to our new home, Ruby's mother instructs him to visit the neighbors, as the leading researcher of the Hoenn reason, Professor Birch, is actually a good friend of Norman, our father, so it would be nice if we went over and greeted them. Ruby comes to find out that the professor isn't home, but we do meet his wife and his kids, especially his eldest, which will be the opposite gendered player character, starting the trend of this character appearing as another character within the canon, usually in like a rival role. May is happy to meet Ruby and even offers to teach him how to catch Pokemon, before remembering she was meant to help her father today, and then rushes out of the room. Ruby leaves as well, probably ready to collapse on his new comfy bed, but unlucky for him, the call for adventure waits for no one, and a child runs up to Ruby begging him to come help with some screaming in the nearby woods. It's okay, Ruby. There's no day and night cycle in Gen 3 anyway. Ruby makes his way out there to see the good professor being chased around by a wild Pokemon. The professor tells Ruby to open his bag and choose a Pokemon to save him with, and Ruby opens the case to see Trico, Torchic, and Mudkip, and oh shit, wait, I didn't really talk about them earlier, did I? Give us a sec here, Doc. Wait, no! Ow, relax, old man, I don't have a lot to say about these 3 anyway. This is kind of similar to the case in Johto, where I very much like all 3 of these guys pretty much the same. They're all well designed and have good inspirations and unique gameplay styles, though poor Sceptile will have to wait till Gen 6 to get a secondary type like his 2 counterparts, though sadly it's not a permanent addition. I've always really liked Sceptile, because, you know, big green reptiles that have like nature has always been like a huge thing for me, though I would probably say that Swampert has been my more recent favorite the last few years. Blaziken's cool, I guess. I just don't feel as strong for him. But, you know, he is alright. You know, he's kind of cool. Just pick one for the love of God! Oh, fine, chicken it is. Also, did you know that Torchic has a minute gender difference in Gen 4 onwards? Yeah, it's this 1 pixel butthole right here. Ah! After fighting off the wild monster, Birch takes us back to the lab to thank us by allowing us to keep the Pokemon, and then recommending we meet up with May to learn more about battles. On our way, we see the usual fixtures of the Pokemon experience. The Marts, the Centers, the annoying as fuck bird. Oh, okay, look, I gotta get this off my chest. A lot of people talk about Tentacool and Zubat being everywhere, but I never hear the same allegations levied towards Wingull. And he shows up way more. This thing is literally everywhere. Every time a beach or ocean or even water is in a Pokemon game from this point forward, you'll have him here. And I get it, it's a sequel, but I'm just tired of seeing him. I like Pelipper, but I wish we got something new. Hopefully Wattrel and Kilowattrel will be like rotated into this spot from time to time, but it's kind of too early for us to really know. But I think we can give this line a break, guys, just come on. Also, why does it get supersonic so damn early? After surviving Birdmageddon, Ruby battles May, obviously coming out the winner. May gets excited and leads us home, where Birch and our mother finally get us ready to begin our typical journey of traveling the region, catching Pokemon, completing the Dex, fighting a cult, and beating the gyms. And speaking of, that's our first stop, as Ruby is ready to face his neglecting father, who didn't even check up on his family who just moved in. Oh, no, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you... Shit! Ruby! Father, it's so nice to see you. Why are you here? Well, you're about as kind as ever. You see, Father, I'm here to challenge you, man to man, in order to try and make sense of all the lies and haze surrounding your relationship with my mother, in the hope that you two can reconcile and finally make our family whole. Is this where I'm supposed to get a starter Pokemon? Dude, I'm literally doing a thing here. I'm sorry, I was just trying to. Better idea, Ruby. Why don't you take this terminally ill child and teach him how to catch a Pokemon? Wait, what? Asthma isn't terminal. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Also, don't come back to the gift for a bad itch. Shut up! Did I interrupt something? No, man. It's fine. Wasn't gonna listen anyway. I'm Wally. Ruby. Oh, he sent me a rental Pokemon to, I guess, catch something with. Do you want to... Yeah, sure, man. Let's just go catch you a Pokemon. Oh, thank you. Ruby takes this Wally here to a nearby route to capture his first Pokemon, which is fittingly the shy psychic Pokemon Ralts. After that, Wally and Ruby wave farewell, as Ruby now plans on getting 4 badges in order to force his father into a confrontation. Though, of course, things are never too easy for our heroes as Ruby explores a nearby forest, a science man begs for his help against this red guy, and an honestly pretty sweet looking hoodie. I wouldn't mind having one of those. After winning, the man explains that that guy was from Team Magma, and he was trying to steal some research notes. Ruby moves on to the first gym and comes out victorious, but is soon enough stopped by the sight of the Magma grunt stealing away the same papers he prevented him from stealing earlier. Of course, at the behest of the science man, he goes after him, and then he gets some more motivation when he finds an old ship captain along the way, who had his Pico stolen by the grunt. Okay. Ruby beats the grunt once again, and is rewarded by meeting the president of the company the science dude works at, Devon Corporations. The president gives Ruby a Pokénav and a bit of a job since he clearly can't be sending out his typical delivery boys in this cult-infested time. Ruby's mission is to first give a letter to the president's son named Steven on Dewford Island. Then give some ship parts to a guy named Stern at the nearby shipyard in Slateport. Ruby takes the job, especially since he needs to head that way anyway for his gym challenge, and the company has the same ship captain from earlier be Ruby's personal ship captain for the remainder of his journey. Or at least till he's just gone later in the adventure. What happened to Bryony? Ruby makes it to Dewford and he looks around, coming across this house full of trendy people who want to know what's hip and happening on the mainland. So Ruby tells them about romantic Poochyena, which is, kind of just been an inside joke with myself that Hoenn just has this crazy Twilight ripoff, but with Poochyena in a love triangle with an Absol and an Umbreon. I don't know, maybe there's a Houndoom also mixed in there. But the idea has always been so cute and funny in my mind, and I get the kick out of just watching these guys act all knowing about this made-up fan fiction. Oh yeah, romantic Poochyena, of course. Who doesn't know about that? I have all the damn Funko Pops, for God's sakes. It's humorous to me, I don't know why. Also, if you're wondering why this is, even here, it's cause the post-game area that kind of uses this system to just generate random trainers with random Pokemon teams, because, they need something to say. After making his way through a dark cave, Ruby meets Steven Stone and gives him a letter. We aren't privy to the contents of the letter, but Steven thanks us, saying that we have some good potential as a trainer and that we'll be seeing him around. After that, we head to see Stern, but unfortunately he's caught up in the Team Magma attack at the local aquarium. After making his way to Stern, Ruby is confronted by the oh-so-scary 27th strongest member of the team. But he and his friends weren't that tough, leaving the head honcho of the Magmas to come in and give us a stern once-over. After that, he calls his men simps, and then he just walks out all intimidating. Ooh, I just felt a shiver. Also, pretty fun of them to bring back this idea of an aquarium from the Johto beta. They do a lot of stuff from that. I'm pretty glad. I like that stuff. After finishing the job, Ruby hits the farmer's market and the contest hall, but he is told he needs to go to the other contest hall to get a pass before he can come back and do this one, which is dumb, but the remakes fixed this, so who cares? He then travels on and meets this weird house magician who sets up an HM maze for him to go throughout the game, which I'm pretty sure everybody forgets about this, but like, I like the concept. Then Ruby heads off, fighting May on the way and having another bout with Wally before he just kind of, fucks off for the rest of the game. Well, I guess you can guess where things are going from here. Ruby travels around, battles gyms, competes in contests, and says hi to May every once in a while, till the Magma Mutts show up and mess things up for him, including the time they kidnapped and mugged another scientist for a meteorite. This time, however, they are interrupted by these pirate guys named Team Aqua. And they're all like, "Yarr, the enemy of me enemy be me friend, matey. Until they be me enemy, so don't do that." And, then they just leave, leading us to the volcano, where we join Team Aqua to stop Maxi from blowing up the volcano, and he almost does it, till he just gets like a phone call telling him that what he actually wants is not here, so he just kind of leaves the meteorite and just leaves. Okay. But with the 4 badges down, it's time to give dear old dad a little wake-up call. "Oh, I'm so sorry, honey. There's just no way I can come home. I'm so busy here at the What? Oh yeah, I saw Ruby, he came by. I told him to get 4 badges, then come back and challenge me later. But most people quit before their second badge because they don't have a personal boat, so I think he will be home, just anytime. Oh. If I beat you, maybe mommy will love me enough not to throw me in the back of a shipping van. She what? I can't believe you beat me. Slacking's actually a pretty fitting Pokemon for you, old man. Always playing the truant. Oh. After feeling some satisfaction for once in his life, Ruby now decides to tackle the second half of the Pokemon region, facing the last of the Pokemon gyms, contests, and a Safari Zone. Do I need to keep bitching about these? I'd want to believe you guys have gotten the point by now, but also these assholes now make you make your own bait this time, so I don't think they've learned anything yet. Though, back to Ruby, things aren't going so well as he ends up fighting the rest of the Magma forces at the Weather Institute and at the Pokemon Graveyard Mount Pyre. There he witnesses Maxi pick up the blue orb, which freaks out the old guardians at the top of the pyre, and they insist that we take the red orb as the two must never be separated, and so we give chase. Unfortunately, we are unable to stop the team from stealing a submarine, and then modifying it in their not-so-secret base. Yeah, man, I don't know, maybe you guys shouldn't be training your whales right outside the front door. Either way though, Maxi and crew have escaped into the depths of the sea with the blue orb in tow. And after another gym battle, Steven gears us up with some scuba equipment before joining us in Team Aqua as we dive under the sea to challenge Maxi in the depths of the underwater cave. Here, Maxi lets it all hang out. God, no. I meant his plan, you sickos. You see, Team Magma is a group of individuals who wish to control the weather that it forces the Earth to create more landmass. Why? I really don't know. But they think this is going to be like a great idea. So much so they're willing to blow up a volcano because they believe the legendary Pokemon Groudon, the creator of Earth's land masses, must have lived inside. Now having found the real location of the red legend, Maxi preps the blue orb to summon him out and... Wait, you picked up the blue orb to summon the red legendary? Oh shit, is this thing blue? Oh man, that's awful. You see, kid, I'm like really bad colorblind, but it was kind of embarrassing to ask anybody for help. Groudon bursts out, set into a frenzy by the blue orb, and then surfaces outside the cave, summoning forth a large burst of sunlight. At first, Maxi is happy with this extreme heat wave, as he hopes it will dry enough of the ocean for new continents to form. but he's informed by one of his seconds in command that at this rate it's all gonna be dried up, and he's like, oh hold on, we need that stuff, don't we? And Team Aqua's leader Archie drags Maxie by the ear to the nearby Cave of Origin, while Steven shows up to tell us to do the same and then just kinda messes off, though he does mention a Wallace character, who we meet when we head to the cave in the center of the city of Sutopolis. The Cave of Origin is a very important place in Hoennian religion, as it's believed to be the place where life started, and its counterpart Mount Pyre is where life ends. In that regard, you can see the actions of Team Magma as Maxie climbing into the heavens to retrieve Groudon's soul, and then resurrecting it here at the Cave of Origin, a reverse of death to life, which is kinda poetic for a place that may even be the exact origin of all the Pokemon world, though that idea may be best saved for the Sinnoh video. For now, Ruby is tasked by Wallace to reach the bottom of the Cave of Origin and defeat Groudon before he is restored to his full power, hopefully calming this mess down. Of course, Ruby, after a frankly wild 17 hours, is down the clown with fighting a god to finish off his day, and hopefully he gets that rest he's been dying for. So he heads down, meets the beast where it lays, and with a red orb seeming to regain Groudon to his senses, probably, because it's the correct one, the two of them have a climactic battle. And afterwards, Ruby gives everybody the okay, and Maxie, now accompanied by Archie, says that he will return the orb to its rightful place and disbands Team Magma. With the world-ending crisis now averted, Ruby makes his way home. Hey, good job, Ruby! You sure did a bang-up job with fighting the super ancient Pokemon. Wait, is that their official title? Yep, and now it's time for the Pokemon League! Thanks, Steven. But I think I've done enough for one day, and now I'm kinda tired. Hey, did you know your father tried and failed to become champion once? I will be the man he could never be! That's the spirit! Wow, I'm really manipulating a child, huh? Ruby travels to the final city before the Pokemon League, Evergrande, which is like just a single Poke Center and a bunch of flowers, which, is odd, but he heads inside the nearby cave to challenge the new Victory Road. On the way, even meeting some interesting people. Early in his adventure, Ruby faced a family of trainers called the Winstons, and was even awarded a special item to train his Pokemon with. Before he left though, Ruby was told about the son of the family, who according to them was supposed to be champion by now. Unfortunately, he hadn't really reached those heights, but he did complete all 8 gyms and was a pretty decent battle for Ruby, so hey, cool to see him here. But he's not the only guest star, as before Ruby can end this episode, Lil Wally shows up, claiming to have been following Ruby's example and has been challenging all the gyms and training hard to become a champion level trainer. And after a battle that shows just how far Wally has grown with his Pokemon, he ultimately has to admit defeat. He never really expected to get this far, but he's proud of his progress and he hopes Ruby will come back to fight whenever he has the chance. With his friend's wishes spurring Ruby on, he makes his way to the Hoenn Elite Four. Starting things off with Sydney, a dark type cool guy who... yeah, that's kind of about it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Sydney, and his strategy of pure offense is pretty cool, because, we've had someone similar in the past with like Lance in the last few videos. But past his design, I don't really have a lot to say. Although I do like that like Karen and Okira before him, the Dark-type Masters are just a bunch of chill characters who just use their favorites, though maybe his team could have used a bit more type diversity. Sadly, one of his better Dark-type options just had to be stolen by our next Elite Four member, Phoebe, a Ghost-type Elite Four member in the lieu of Agatha, though unlike her, she is far more happy and cheerful, which perfectly contrasts her own ghostly abilities, being able to not just speak to, but watch as the spirits walk amongst us in our everyday lives, after her training at Mount Pyre. I love Phoebe, from her personality to her wonderful design. I love the hula girl look, but my only complaint against her is that her team is unfortunately kinda samey, with a lot of multiples of the same line. This being a downside of the game's limited decks, and the only other ghost Pokemon being Shedinja, which, if you forgot, was already kinda supplemented with older Pokemon by necessity. The decks can still be limited in some areas though, and I kinda wish Game Freak would have allowed the Elite Four members to use Pokemon of different types, like the Elite Four in the previous 2 gyms, to help balance their teams a bit better. Glacia is, well, a bit of a paradox. This fine lady is a master of all things cold, but is extremely passionate about battles, to the point where she's referred to as the flaming passion in the icy cold, which isn't the best nickname ever, it's kind of a mouthful, but it does describe her quite well. Kind of like Agatha before her, she is quite uncaring about weaker trainers, though unlike Agatha, she does seem to care about her Pokemon, which is probably why she keeps reusing the same 2 lines, and it's arguably even worse than the remakes, because you got way more options. Drake is probably my favorite Elite Four member in this game. It's mostly because of his design as this badass ship captain that uses dragon Pokemon, but he's also like good friends with Mr. Briny, making me wonder if once upon a time the two were like rival ship captains that battled each other, but Briny retired from all that while Drake continued to get stronger. But all that's fan fiction. In real fiction, he's alright. It's pretty funny to see a dragon tamer actually use a full team of dragons for once, but like the others, his team is in desperate need of variety. And then, it's time. The champion. Steven Stone, the man we've been meeting on and off again as our adventures across the Hoenn region continued. This stone-obsessed Nepo baby has been slowly guiding us to the point where he can finally challenge us to end his career with a "Wait a minute, you use Pokemon outside of your main type?" Yeah, I mean, it'd be pretty stupid if I had like a team of 4 Mawwiles or something like that. But also, the name, Steven Stone? I had to at least have a few rock types, like, come on. Then why, but the Elite Four, I'll screw it, whatever. Steven is a decent fight though, and I like how all his Pokemon are like based on ancient stuff, or just like really cool steel types. I think that's interesting. And I also think it's funny how he just kind of gatekeeps an entire species from his home region, and only gives you one in the post-game, because, I don't know, I guess he likes you. But overall, the Elite Four and Hoenn are kind of disappointing, especially in Challenge. If you have one of your Pokemon which is good against one of theirs, that means it's good against the majority of their team, which I think is disappointing in a final gauntlet of fights. In fact, here, this is what I do to fix their teams and make them a bit more interesting. Just adding a little bit more variety while also staying on their theme. Here I gave Sydney a team based on light and dark concepts, which funnily enough still have all that little diamond pattern, you know, to match his hair. And I gave Phoebe some more spiritual Pokemon, you know, ones that fit in the whole theming of the dead. She lives in a graveyard, spirit lanterns and roses are kind of a given. I know, Blossom and Ninetales would probably fit better, but these two don't get any love until like Sinnoh, and I want to change that. Glacia now has a team that can work well with both rain and hail, hopefully covering up a lot of her weaknesses while also playing to her strengths. Drake, well, he's a dragon user and we're allowed to bend the rules. If Steven can do so, all of you can do so. Also, screw it, here's your rematch teams if this game had them. This is an Elite Four, I'm adding Shedinja. But after winning, May and Birch come congratulate us before we head back to the Hall of Fame, cementing our legacy in the Hoenn region, and the fact that we're much better than our deadbeat dad. Oh, shit, you're home. Hey, son, I thought about what you said at the gym, and, you know, watching you work so hard to succeed where I failed made me realize something. That you should take more time off from work and actually spend time with your family for one. Oh, no, screw all that. I'm gonna get even stronger and steal the championship from you. Oh, well, I guess that's better than the nothing you were doing. Oh, before I forget. Wow, Dad, a ticket to the new battle tower. That's so sweet. Actually, some old guy asked me to pass it along to you. I'd actually keep it for myself, but, you know, it has your name and picture on it, so that would have been awkward. Okay, bye. Mom, why is that Machoke still here? I've been so lonely with the both of you gone! And that's the story of Pokemon Ruby. Okay, you know, with some exaggerations for entertainment purposes, such as Ruby's father being a deadbeat. Well, okay, maybe not that one. He still kind of like recluses himself, you know, from his family, you know, because of like work. But he wasn't like outright malicious. No, I believe he's doing what, canonically speaking, all main character fathers are supposedly doing. Working. Yeah, I mean, that's the canonical reason according to Game Freak. It's no secret Japanese work environments have been notoriously hostile and quite toxic for many decades, usually requiring employees to live quite demanding lives that takes them away from their families. The tradition of leaving the father absent from Pokemon games, usually leaving them in this ethereal space of existing in large quotation marks. Norman is the first one to really contradict this, being the first and so far only father of a player character to appear in the series. And as a character, you know, I kinda do like Norman. He'll get some more development and stuff like the mangas and the remakes that really show that he does care and love his family, he's just very dedicated to his work. He's not neglectful, but he's not there most of the time. And I think it's interesting to have that sort of character flaw we don't see in a lot of Pokemon side characters, especially one that never truly gets resolved. Norman is proud of the player's ability to surpass him, but he doesn't take that as a catalyst to really look at his own actions and how his not being there may not be the best motivation for the player to have. That being said, him being the one to initiate the challenge to the player, asking them to prove themselves before facing him, their father, gives the protagonist of the Hoenn games a unique motivation from any other in the series, and I do find that fascinating. Especially as this all really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of this story. The main thing happening in the story outside of our own adventures is the villain plot. Of course we spoke on Team Magma, but that's not necessarily it. Remember Team Aqua and their sort of alliance with us, but not really? Well, if you played Ruby's sister game Sapphire, if you played that game instead of Team Magma, you'd have to deal with Team Aqua and their platoon of blue as they attempted to flood the world with a powerful ocean maker Kyogre instead of the land maker Groudon. Of course, then having the Magmas accompany us instead as the sort of allies. These two and their plans were made to be interchangeable. That's why the Magma guys are seen with Whalmers and, saying things like, "Keel haul it all!" And the Aqua guys can be found trying to blow up the volcano. They're essentially the same villain plot, just change the Pokemon, the legend, and the characters. Which I find to be a rather interesting approach, especially since this is the first new evil team to appear after every other game had some form of the Rockets as the bad guy. And I have to say, these two teams are quite an interesting setup. Though, to be quite honest, in terms of writing, they're not really as interesting as somebody as, say, Giovanni, who had his own arc of trying to overcome his own inadequacies by trying to cheat the game through cheap villainy and his own mad science, then learning by battling someone similar to his younger self that he went down the wrong path, learning to abandon his sins and train on to be something better. Except when he doesn't. Maxie and Archie, however, don't really have anything that interesting writing-wise. Their goals are to increase the world's oceans or increase the world's land. Why do they want to do this? Well, as a kid, I kind of like to imagine them that they were like scientists. I mean, it's mentioned before by a few in the game that they used to be on the same team, and we know that they seem to have some connections to the different scientific organizations in Hoenn. Hell, in Oraz, it's stated that their right-hand men were straight-up members of Devonco. So I thought maybe they were like a geologist and a marine biologist, some sort of professional researcher that would have found or discovered research that made them curious to try and revert the modern Earth to something more primal that would really interest their studies. But no, that's not it at all. They just believe more land or more water would just make everything better. I mean, they give a few small reasons for why they specifically believe it's better, but it's not really all that convincing. I mean, humans and Pokemon use the sea just as much as the land, Maxie. I don't know why you think more land will fix everything. That is, until the remakes. Here, these two not only get good reasons for what they're trying to do, but they also just get a massive boost in just every regard. For one, their drip. S tier. I mean, their looks in the original were not awful, lacking, sure, but nothing bad. But the remakes, they fixed that. They fixed a lot of things, but we'll go over that later. For the originals, I like Team Aqua, I like Team Magma, What they lack in substance, they make up for in the rule of cool. I like their Hatfield-McCoy-like feud, I like the way they contrast each other, and I like the way they immediately join the player's side as soon as the other guy gets close to their goals. That's hilarious. These two are probably my favorite teams, based strictly on style. If we're talking substance, I do really like that hoodie. Like, at some point, I really need to get one of those. And I also like them both to the point where I got like the Aqua Magma set in Oraz. I almost completely collected all those cards, you know, besides all the shit like Reverse Hollow or whatever. Though I do wish they actually used more Pokemon. Like, they do in like the cards, the anime, and the manga, but you know, just fighting the same dogs, camels, bats, and fish just gets boring after a while. I mean, Emerald adds Wailmer and Baltoy, and then the remakes replace those with Weezing and Muk for some reason. I don't know, I just wish the water team used a lot more water, and the ground team used a lot more ground. Or at least adjacent Pokemon, you know? Also, yeah, Team Magma is ground type, Magma is liquid rock. Not saying they can't use fire types, just saying rock, ground, and steel are kind of the priority. I do get the confusion, however, the fire team doesn't really use fire types. It's odd. Wally. Let me tell you something about Wally, alright? This guy is honestly my favorite rival now. I'm sorry, Bianca, I've always loved your story, your arc, and I think I had like a crush on you when I first played Black and White on my 10th birthday, but like, I like Wally. He's the Todd of Pokemon. And I know you've seen my Fossil Fighter video, so you also know that I would not throw around that title lightly. I, as in me, Chubby, excuse me, love me a good underdog who's not necessarily bullied by, you know, everybody, but he's held back by the fact that he isn't the main character. He can't win in this story. But that doesn't matter to him. Wally is a child with some sort of illness. Something gets cancer, something gets asthma. Either way, the kid's in bad shape. And he's really sad that he probably won't be able to go on a journey like the other kids his age. But one day his old man decides the city life ain't helping his boy, you know, like as in a tie back to like how pollution theming and how that's affecting people, you know, that kind of stuff. But basically, Wally needs to go off and live somewhere with cleaner air like where his uncle lives. Well, he sends him to Norman to get a starter Pokemon, and who does he meet but Ruby, the son of the gym leader freshly christened as a trainer, and is now on his own journey, the one Wally wished he could go on. The two boys travel to the next route over and find a Pokemon. Wally catches it easily on his first try, and with Ruby and company congratulating him, Wally gets a little boost in confidence. And we later see Wally trying to access the third gym. He's got his Pokemon, he's feeling a bit better, so hey, he's ready to try some baby steps towards his goal. His uncle accompanies him, but he's not really that sure Wally's ready for all this. And who comes along but good old Ruby, also ready to challenge the gym. Wally, believing them both to be trainers now, challenged Ruby to a battle to prove to his uncle he's ready for the world. And he loses. Badly. Wally is distraught, so his uncle thanks Ruby and hurries him home. But something's different this time. Wally makes sure to turn back to Ruby and let him know this isn't the last time you'll see him. Later, Ruby visits Wally's uncle's house, so they can visit him as his uncle offered. However, the kid's not home. Apparently a fire has been lit in Wally's heart, and he's gone off promising to fight us again. Later on, after beating Dad, Wally's dad actually comes out to greet us, and he thanks us for what we've done. Apparently Wally is doing really well now, to the point where he's facing and defeating multiple gym leaders, including Pops in there. And it's all thanks to us. Seeing Ruby really inspired him to go out into the world, and we see the fruits of that with one final showdown. Wally has done it all. He's fought every trainer, obtained every badge, and built a team of loyal, powerful Pokemon to carry him here. The Victory Road. Now we are his only obstacle to reaching his dream. It's a very inspiring and heartwarming story for a Pokemon character. And after the two dudes last time, I'm a bit surprised to get this level of emotional depth outside of a remake or a comic. Wally is somebody who really struggled to get where he is. And that where is a place nobody believed he could ever reach. Sadly, he does lose this fight. I mean, of course. This isn't his story. In his story, we are his final challenge, the last thing he needs to overcome, but that can't happen in a game like Pokemon. We're never allowed to let him win. But he's come far and beyond any expectation or limitation the world placed on him. It's wonderful. I like this version of Wally, though we'll have to wait till the remake to see what he's truly capable of. For now, I do have a complaint or two. One is that we never really get to see his name carved into the gem statues like we did with Blue in Gen 1. Minor thing, of course, but if he is our rival, then I'd like a way to keep track of his progress. And my second complaint actually builds off of that. We only see him 3 times in the game. I mean, sure, we get updates from his family, but we don't get to see him for ourselves. We don't get to see progress from the shy, timid beginner to the confident trainer. Imagine if we fought him ever so often in order for him to really test his mettle against ours. We're his rival after all. It would be fantastic to watch him grow. But unfortunately, as far as Hoenn's concerned, Wally's not our real rival. Brendan and May are. And that is the most disappointing thing about this story, because these two are nothing. They have no aspirations, no goals, no personalities. Why are they even my rivals in the first place? What are we competing with them for? And I know, not all Pokemon rivals are inherently our competition, but those guys at least have something going on. Do Brendan and May even challenge the gyms, the contests, the Pokédex? I don't know, they kind of just show up in the beginning, a bit in the middle, and then they effectively piss off till the very end. I mean, we don't even get to have like a full-on final battle like we get to do with Wally. We never see these two at their full potential. But there is something there. It's tiny, but it's there. Allow me to switch over to Emerald for a second. In this game, when you battle May right before Fortree, this guy named Scott, who's kind of important, but that's for later. Anyway, Scott passes her as she runs off, and then he nudges you like, wow, she looked upset. Her face was red. And it's like, oh, I guess she took that loss pretty bad, huh? I mean, it's not like she was acting mean or anything before she ran off. She seemed really nice, but I guess she was kind of upset. Oh my god, is May jealous of us? Oh, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, actually. So in the games, May and Brendan are the child of the professor, right? They're sort of like their assistants and kind of like the prodigy of the town. They're kind of a big deal in that small little town, and maybe even the rest of Hoenn. This place has got a bit of a nepo baby problem. So one day our character moves in and they're like, oh, haha, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I can teach you some moves sometimes, you know, just being all cool. And then Ruby saves their father's life and gets a rare starter and a Pokédex just like May, which probably wouldn't even bother her all that bad. But then she loses. God, that's gotta be a new feeling, huh? And as the adventure goes on, this new guy gets more and more popular, defeating the gyms, beating back cultists, becoming the world-ranking pageant mom, and even beating May at every opportunity. It must be infuriating to see some new guy come and take all the glory that your life was supposed to have, and be unequivocally better than you while he does it. May doesn't let this slip though. Instead, she takes the mean girl route of saying nice things face to face, but behind all that is pure venom for you as a person. Oh my gosh. That would be such an interesting rival to have if it wasn't just in a few throwaway lines, and in practice, she's just basically like, tee-hee, good luck on your adventure, buddy. And it's just not any deeper than that. The remakes turn this into like puppy love, which I guess is like cute, not really any more interesting than what we got, and it's definitely not as interesting as what was hinted, but hey, at least they got a final battle that time. I don't know, Brendan and May just have nothing going on for them. It really should have been Wally that was our main rival. He's far more interesting than most of the other rivals even after this point. But what can you do? And that's Pokemon Ruby. A fun, interesting start to the third generation. I don't know what those reviewers were talking about when they called this game a stale sequel. This gen introduced a majority of the major features that Pokemon is still known for to this day. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, no! It's good, okay? I mean, I tell you to play it if you're interested, but I can't really do that without first recommending the next few games, as they are actually much better versions of these games. So let's get into it, starting off with the capstone of the third generation, Pokemon Box Ruby and Sapphire. What the fuck is this? Pokemon Box Ruby and Sapphire was a GameCube game that allowed the player to store up to 1,500 Pokemon outside of the mainline games, while also allowing trade between all three mainline Gen 3 games as well. The player was able to customize these boxes to their liking, developing a little showcase stage to show off their Pokemon to their friends, as well as play Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire on the TV screen with additional borders, kind of like Pokemon Stadium, which is like kinda cool, but why couldn't we do this with Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Emerald? Yeah, I don't know why Pokemon's like on its high horse when it comes to emulation. My guess is because literally everyone does it better than them. But you may recognize the host of this game as a lady named Bridget, who's probably more famous for this game's better known sequel, Pokemon Bank. Though she does have a sister you can visit in the main Hoenn games as well. Yeah, okay, so basically this is just a storage depot for any of your Pokemon you want to make sure are safe. You know, whenever you like delete a save file or loan a game to a friend or something. Or even if you want to like trade between your games if you don't like have any friends. Yeah, don't be ashamed, because I would have absolutely done that had I had a GameCube as a child. Though, oddly enough, unlike Pokemon Bank, this game actually has like a lot of restrictions to how you can trade and transfer Pokemon between all these games. Because, I don't know, Game Freak were just really huge assholes when it came to trading in the Gen 3 games. You always had to like beat a game fully or do a dumb fetch quest or just some bullshit. It was really like pulling teeth if you want to play Pokemon Ruby with a Bulbasaur as your starter for like no good reason. Though, this game does actually have some exclusive mons you can gain from it. Mostly just mons with like special moves like Extreme Speed Zigzagoon, Surfing Pichu, False Swipe Swablu. I don't know, they're not all winners, alright, but they're special. At least in comparison. Yeah, alright, let's talk about Pokemon Emerald.
You've mastered every Pokemon move. Sleep powder. Rock throw. Confuse ray. Now you're ready for the all-new Battle Frontier. Take on your biggest challenge yet in Pokemon Emerald, only for Game Boy Advance. Rated E for everyone.
Pokemon Emerald! So, coming off the heels of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green... Wait a minute, this came out after the remakes? Weird. Usually a big director's cut deluxe version is supposed to come out, you know, before a newer game comes out. You know, so people don't see it as the big cash grab it pretty much is. Well, in Emerald's case, that's not... Well, yeah, that kind of is the case. Herald as the return to a brand new version of Hoenn, asterisk, Pokemon Emerald is pretty much the game we probably should have gotten in the first place, and reviews at the time seem to have agreed, giving pretty lackluster scores for a Pokemon game. Yeah, by the third generation, publications were already saying that the games were becoming unoriginal and that third versions were bullshit. Gah. That must have been why Game Freak saw the writing on the wall with Platinum. Especially if like Gen 4 was as pre-planned as they want us to believe. Still didn't stop them from making Ultra Sun and Moon, but that's a different story! Pokemon Emerald doesn't actually have that many details regarding its development, but for the most part we can say that plans started for this game sometime during the opening plans for Gen 3. The game was marketed heavily in Japan using CoroCoro magazine, but Nintendo also held multiple competitions across North America called the Pokemon Emerald Ultimate Frontier Battle Brain. God, that's like a butchered translation from like Battle Frontier Brain, isn't it? The 2000s and like early gaming can be so weird about that stuff. But this basically centered around asking contestants general Pokemon trivia and giving them a variety of prizes such as a Rayquaza GBASP and a trip to the Pokemon Park in Nagoya, Japan, while some others got tickets to view the competition at the Washington Space Needle. Man, I'm really starting to realize why so many rumors, surrounding going to space from the Moss Deep spaceship were going around like crazy with these games. Between these two new alien legendaries and all their promotion, it must have just felt like a given. There's actually, quite a bit of gameplay changes to Pokemon Emerald, with minor changes to puzzles and areas and important trainer battles being added to help keep things fresh for returning Hoenn players, along with a lot more major changes, such as National Dex Pokemon actually being available in these games, though don't get your hopes up as it's only barely in the double digits. Some new battle areas have been opened up around the region, such as the mini battle tents with their own little battle styles, which now occupy the spaces where the contest buildings used to be. But don't worry, as those are still here, but they occupy a single building in Lily Cove, which is kind of boring to be honest. I really miss the adventure aspects to those when you see one in a new town. Though we also get the returning Trainer Hill from Fire Red and Leaf Green, which was cool to see. Though we all know where this is going, so let's just skip to the end. The Battle Frontier. A huge post-game area that's chock full of different arenas to test your might as a trainer, each with their own special ways of battling and testing your resolve. Sure, we have the usual battle tower, but what about the battle pike, which has the player go through different rooms with a variety of random events, like wild battles, trainer battles, or an asshole who gives you status conditions. I know you control that thing, old man, don't you lie to me! Or the Battle Pyramid, which is like a roguelike dungeon with multiple floors with all kinds of new random challenges, like a fucking Shedinja when I didn't have the moves to beat it. Or the Battle Palace, where your Pokemon fight for themselves and we get to learn just how stupid these overpowered creatures are without a 10-year-old to command them. The Battle Dome, which has the standard tournament structure complete with different brackets. The Battle Factory, where you get to use rental Pokemon to battle, giving you limited options and forcing you to try out mons you may not have otherwise. And finally, the Battle Arena, where you set your Pokemon up for specific rounds and they're tested by judges for their abilities in mind, skill, and body, to see who is superior. Or you can do like me and lose to a Shedinja again. I was prepared this time, but I put the Mon in the wrong round and I just got comboed. Alright, I'm gonna level with you. Post-game battle facilities aren't really my cup of tea. Now, I don't hate them, and I do agree that something like the Battle Tower, with its many ways of battling, can be really fun to have in a game. But I never was a huge fan of these types of modes, and I know exactly why that is. It's because I don't care for building my teams up for competitive battling, nor do I care for game modes that feels like they lack progression. What's that last part mean? Well, I don't care for doing hundreds and hundreds of battles, and my team not really earning any sort of experience from it. My level 50 Torterra is going to stay a level 50 Torterra no matter how many times I put it through these facilities. And I know I can use BP to get tutor moves and good battle items, but I don't care to fight 500 trainers just to teach my boy Outrage or Superpower. I kind of find that boring. I've definitely eased up on all this a bit, and I did fight half the unique bosses in these facilities for this video and the Johto video. And in terms of fights and characters, I really do like all the brains of the facilities, as they get a lot more creative and interesting with how they force you into a battle in a way that they themselves excel at. But I'm not super into the grind that comes with these areas, and I vastly prefer things like rematches with gym leaders or post-game explorable areas, which is something this game does kind of add, so thanks for that, Emerald. But what I'm trying to say is, I'm just not huge on battle facilities, though I do appreciate the role they play in the series. I'm just kind of indifferent to them as a whole. If the Battle Frontier never comes back, I'd say that's a shame, but it really wouldn't hurt me all that much. Though, I do kind of you can get a little protege in Pokemon Emerald. They even did a whole manga based on that, and I think that's kind of cute. Also, there's this kid and like Rustboro, I don't know why I didn't mention this earlier, but this kid's like really sick or something, and if you speak like a random set of gibberish to her dad, you can get like custom PC box themes, which I know kind of random, but I thought it was kind of cool. Visually speaking, Pokemon Emerald very much takes the standard approach for these third versions, where a lot of the time most of the new visuals usually coming down to the designs of the main characters and some minor tweaks to the overall sprite sheets for the overworld areas. Though a pretty big change is the return of animated sprites from Crystal, which is cool. You know, I really do like it when they bring back shit that should have just never been cut out in the first place. Cough, cough. Day and night cycle not in the only games with a working time feature. Cough, cough. Musically, we get plenty of new music, including the incredible new music for the new main legend and the Battle Frontier Brains, which... it's heavenly. But the big thing now is the reworked story, which we'll be playing as Ruby's alternative self, Emerald, for this. This time having us battle both evil teams with an awkward emphasis on Team Aqua, since a lot of the events like stealing a ship or raiding an aquarium are just more water-coded, to be honest. Though Maxie does try to pull like a 9/11 conspiracy and try to show that jet fuel can't melt steel beams, but it can blow up a volcano, which, hey, that's kind of funny. And then he has the nerve to write this dumbass terrorist letter saying stuff like, "How are you? I'm doing great." I like to think he's in bed, just kicking his feet, writing this like letter with one hand, and Courtney's doing his nails on the other. Girl, you believe what I'm gonna use this jet fuel for? Slay! But both of these dipshits are now trying to awaken both super ancient Pokemon, and don't you worry, as they both go for the wrong colored orb. Well, either way, both behemoths are awakened, and are ready to rumble over the planet. And of course, both Maxie and Archie both shit themselves trying to stop them, which is kind of funny, because in my mind, wouldn't these two just kind of like cancel each other out? Like, obviously not in the way that would leave any sort of life intact, though I could definitely see why they think drowning will be the much greater threat in this scenario, as Kyogre's pretty much got ground on dead to rights because it's like surrounded by water. But hey, Wallace is like, "Hey kid, you know there's another one of these god thingies, right?" So they send Emerald here to go check out the Sky Temple early. Thankfully, the temple structure is a lot more stable this time around, so Emerald's able to reach the top and meet face to face with a super ancient Pokemon of the skies, Rayquaza. Oh shit, he just kind of left me here. Shit, I'm gonna have to walk all the way back there, aren't I? The majestic Rayquaza then flies through the air, appearing before the other legends and fulfilling its divine holy duty. Would you two shut the fuck up? The two giants are then forced back into their own slumbers, as Rayquaza then makes his way back to the tower, with Emerald not getting to witness any of it. Well, all's well that ends well, and Maxie and Archie decide to put aside their differences and then walk away. Scot-free. You know, I really hate to advocate for like jails, but we at least gotta make them go door to door apologizing, right? Bringing the world to the brink is a little much if you ask me. Which then leads us to fighting the last gym leader. Hoenn? Who the Hoenn are you? Hoenn here is the old master of Wallace, now taking over as the final gym leader, while his protege is now the champion of Hoenn. I beat him in a 1v6, cause Shedinja just ain't no joke, man. I really do like this Pokemon. But wait, what happened to Steven? Well, now he fulfills the red role as the super boss, only available in the post game, which is really funny as everyone in Hoenn just doesn't seem to respect Steven like at all. Especially not like how Kanto and Johto like really love red. Here in Hoenn, they just think Steven is like really weird because he like really likes rocks, which I think is hilarious. But the only other story element added for this game is the new character of Scott, who kind of just hangs around, scouting out trainers for his new Battle Frontier, Emerald included, of course. He's cool. I don't know. There's not really a lot to say about Scott, other than he has some pretty funny lines, and he really just pusses out whenever Team Aqua or Magma get involved, which is really funny, because the man has the Pokemon Avengers and their legendaries on speed dial. I know you slide into Hulk's DMs, man. Bring him in here. We're fighting the gods. But yeah, that's Emerald's story. It's basically an improved version on Ruby and Sapphire's, And I can definitely see why everyone's views on this is that it should have just been what they put out in the first place. Which, yeah, I mean, people sort of said that for Crystal and Yellow, but this is just a straight up improvement. You could have just like taken a break year with Ruby and Sapphire and then just released Emerald the next year and then Fire Red and Leaf Green. I think we'd all be fine with that, you know? Though, nowadays, it at least is easier to tell you, the consumer, which one to play, and comparing the 3 GBA Hoenns, this is probably the one. Unless, of course, there's like a version exclusive mon you want, but man, just use PK Hex at this point, nobody cares. Craziest take of the century, Pokemon Emerald is a good game, woo! But here's a take that might just be a little hotter, and that's that the remakes are at the very least on Emerald's level, if not better.
You can get ready for an epic Pokemon adventure. Take to the skies with the new Soar feature. You can Mega Evolve your Pokemon and discover secrets of the legendary Pokemon. Take adventure to new heights with Pokemon Omega Ruby and Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. Only on Nintendo 3DS. Games rated E for everyone.
Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are remakes of the original 2 Generation 3 games, coming a good decade after their original release. These games, being based on the then current Generation 6 games X and Y, are as such a 3D venture with all new gameplay additions from previous generations, such as fairy typing, physical special split, and all new game modes like triple, rotation, horde, and inverse battles. Though oddly enough, there's no sky battles, which is kind of funny, but hey, those weren't all that well implemented anyway. But it doesn't even stop there, as there's also a new version of the Pokénav in this game that comes equipped with apps that mimic the bottom PSS system from X and Y, aka the best Game Freak multiplayer manager. We got the new stat boosting minigames and super training, and the ability to pet your Pokemon in Pokemon Me. And again, we'll save the overpoweredness of this feature for another time, but let me just say, man, I really did miss these minigames. Like, I've always was addicted to like the Yarn Ball game, but oh my god, I forgot how cool it was. And just how cute the idea of it, you know, to just pet your individual Pokemon, I miss this feature, I wish it would come back. Though we also got some new apps like this one, which allows you to like specifically hunt certain Pokemon with like special movesets, abilities, or even higher levels. The map app actually features like different things like berry tracking, match call, and, well, a map, you know, like the original. But we also got a news app that keeps you up to date with all kinds of things happening in the region, as well as Street Pass events, which pretty much just replaces the TV's role in the original games, which was basically just used to like share your character's exploits and then like the little interviews you can do around the region. But we also have the introduction of Mega Evolution to the Hoenn games, including a few brand new ones that were made for this game, including an entire brand new, like, I don't know, form of Mega Evolution with Primal Reversion, but we can get to that later. As for these new Megas, I just love them, as they give a lot more utility to a lot of Pokemon who are just in desperate need of it. And at its core, that's like exactly what Megas should be, an extra boost to Pokemon who need it. Too bad it's like wasted on Pokemon who are strong enough already, or hell, in some cases, better off without it. Though of course, they do all still look super cool. A funny anecdote is like when ORAS was just like getting announced, I had this team in X and Y that was made up of like Steelix, Salamence, Lopunny, Beedrill, Slowbro, and then all of them got Megas and ORAS, which kind of made me feel like I was some sort of psychic, and you know, all the more disappointed when all my predictions didn't come true in the following games, but still, really glad to see a lot of my favorites get new forms. This game also really features like a really cool expanded version of the 2 big minigames in the original Hoenn, the contests and the secret bases. Starting off with the bases, they are so much more content packed, as you're able to customize these to a further extent than was ever possible before, even allowing us to make things like our own gyms with the new trainer function, where we and some friends can leave copies of our team to fight in our bases, or in some people's cases, making their bases like these really cool grinding spots for EVs and IVs, as well as like levels, which I think is really cool. Unfortunately, the only uncool part of this is Hoenn, a Unnovan adventurer coming to Hoenn to like take lead of the secret base movement. And by uncool, I don't mean that this character isn't awesome. I do love him, and I love his fit, and I love his energy. He's definitely an American. I love him, I can just tell by looking at him. But my problem comes in his signature Pokemon Flygon, a Pokemon that was planned to have a Mega Evolution since its introduction in X and Y, but unfortunately just never got one, which makes the fact that Hoenn gives you the Mega Stone on the Dragon Ground type that did get one, but makes no use of it, all the more unfortunate. I have never seen a man get cucked this badly. This is horrendous. What isn't, though, is the new contests in the game, essentially being an even better version of the ones we got in the originals, as long as you don't count, like, the Infinite Void in the background. Yeah, that was, like, for the 3DS's outer camera to make use of, so you could, like, make your own stage. But on an emulator, it kind of just looks like the Pokemon are performing for no audience but the infinite nothingness of space. There's a deeper theme in there somewhere. But hey, don't ask me, because I'm too distracted by all the cool new super moves your Pokemon are able to pull off. You know, after you like collect the 5 stars in a double or contest. Fuck, I'm so tired. God, these are so cool. Doubly so if your Pokemon can Mega Evolve, as they will transform during this section, giving you some extra bonuses, which sounds kind of broken. Yeah, you know exactly where that's going. And so is the new cosplay Pikachu you get from this mode. Basically, a Pikachu that has the ability to don different outfits and gain new signature moves with each one, making it the perfect Pokemon to rise to stardom with, though you're unfortunately unable to evolve it or transfer it outside of your game, so it's kind of just a gimmicky Pokemon like the spiky-eared Pichu in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but a lot more interesting to use in battles. Man, I'd hate to be the Pokemon specifically designed to be good in contests, as those guys just got shafted for like no good reason. But I think our new rival in the contest scene kind of makes up for that. Licia is Wallace's younger cousin that is now known as a contest star, and wants to make you one too so you can one day challenge her at the top. Throughout the game, she's always there to pick us up when we lose or congratulate us when we win. And there's even hints to like a more romantic connection to the player kind of hinted at there, but the main man Chaz is here to get in the way of all of that. He's another rival that you can like challenge in the contest throughout the game with his Machoke Mashiri, who he refuses to like enter in toughness contests as he doesn't want to hurt her beauty, with them both being in love with Lisa and her Altaria, which is kind of funny as Machoke having a crush on Altaria is actually like the first girl-on-girl crush in the series, except for those ones in the abandoned cult ship, but that's for later. Chaz really does seem abrasive at first, but he actually comes clean later in our contest adventures about how he really cares about Licia, and it stems from his respect of her as a competitor. It's unfortunate that Chaz and Mashiri are such a small part in the game, as I did really come to kind of like their characters as it went on, and I kind of wish him and Mashiri kind of got their own character models, but I appreciate the cleverness of how they reused models from like the main game to play into their backstory. Chaz found Mashiri on a stormy night in a cardboard box, the same box she still carries around. Feeling pity on her, he adopted Mashiri and promised to use his wealth as a rich boy and his skills as a contest star to unlock her true beauty. And by endgame, he learns that denying her strength is holding her back, and he resolves to enter toughness contests and even battle in the gyms to help her develop it, even having Brawly specifically help him train, which I found to be pretty cool. Auras actually does a lot to expand on characters and other elements in its story, but we can get there fully in a minute. For now, as it refers to gameplay, the events of Kyogre or Groudon actually caused like a huge shift in Hoenn's climate, with Professor Birch now specifically studying that phenomenon. This shift has caused odd things to happen in the game, such as a lot of new Pokemon appearing throughout the different routes, which the player is able to use the Pokénav to find. Even seemingly summoning the legendary Pokemon Hoopa to Hoenn, and it starts causing trouble throughout the region by summoning rings that call forth all kinds of new legendaries that the player will have to fulfill certain requirements to find. Though, ironically, the only one we don't is Hoopa itself, which is kinda funny because you'd think it'd have a bigger role considering the trouble it's causing, but oh well. I do kinda like this idea as it makes the endgame of Auras very unique, as you're given the national dex before even battling the Elite Four. and the trainers in the Victory Road will make use of these new Pokemon, which I find is really cool. Be even better if like the Elite Four use them as well, considering the teams still share their, blandness even with new evolutions and the other National Next Mons being available. But c'est la vie, I guess. Soaring is a new function that the player is given after the events with Kyogre and Groudon. You see, sometime in the story the player will be called upon to help a member of the Eon duo, and alongside Steven, they will gain its trust and it will join you on the adventure. When you defeat the rampaging legendary later, Steven entrusts you with a flute which calls upon the Eon duo and allows you to ride them across the Hoenn sky in their Mega Evolution, finding more Hoopa rings and new Mirage spots that randomly appear, and feature all kinds of National Dex Pokemon building on the idea of the Mirage Island in the original games. Which, yeah, I didn't really mention before, because it's just straight up not as cool as these, and it's almost impossible to find. But soaring as a mechanic is... God, it's beautiful! Flying over the region of Hoenn, watching as the boats move back and forth, and the Pokemon glide above it, the music is genuinely some of the best work the series has ever produced, especially if you fly at night. Oh my god! I am so glad Oraz brings back the day and night cycle, cause without that, this would just not be nowhere near as cool. Could you imagine soaring without the night sky? Sheesh, may as well not even have it. Speaking of not having it, why don't we do this anymore? It's so cool. I mean, I guess we can kind of do it, but it's not the same, damn it. But these aren't the only rideable Mons in the game, as you can also hitch a ride on Sharpedo to move faster in the water, Wailmer to just, surf, and Kyogre to just surf, but also not really fit anywhere because he's so big. No Lapras, which is pretty weird because this is basically a direct rip from X and Y's rideable HM idea that they also basically made no use of in that game, but okay, whatever, this is just the start for Gen 7 stuff. The post-game is, well, it's quite interesting. Starting things off with the Delta episode, which I'll wait to dive into fully in a minute, but for now, just know that I found it to be a really enjoyable time and a nice send-up to Pokemon Emerald. What isn't so nice, at least in the eyes of the player, is the rest of the post-game. The Battle Tower, the Battle Frontier, all of it has been replaced with the Battle Mason from Pokemon X and Y. In fact, a lot of the post-game battle offerings are the exact same to X and Y, right down to reusing the exact areas and models. Minus the ability to rematch gym leaders for some reason. At least you can rematch the Elite Four with actually good teams, but still, though, to be fair to Oraz, adding in some new things such as the battle subway, no, more like the sandwich subway, there we go. Which is like this unique battle arena where you have a certain amount of turns to complete a number of battles in order to receive a prize. If speaking purely on the amount of ways to battle in this game, I think it'd be fair to say that there's enough content here to match that of the Battle Frontier. But my friends, appearances do matter. And a lot of Emerald's content being missing from this game when the previous remakes added a majority of their unique third version's content, you can see why people are upset with the offerings here, right? As for me though, I don't really give a shit, but I understand why y'all do, especially with how they tempt us with the Battle Frontier and the game itself. There was a comment going around about how kids these days just don't spend enough time on one game anymore, so they didn't really feel the need to add the game mode back in. Which, isn't exactly what they said in that interview, as that was actually an interpretation on the interviewer, as Game Freak didn't really answer that question and instead referred back to another answer they gave, which was based on the difficulty of the game, and it being way easier, which, yeah, it kind of is, playing it even with the experience share off, if you turn it right back on in short spurts, it just keeps your team way over leveled. Unless you deliberately skip fights and then turn the thing back off, it's a mess, personally, is what my opinion of it is. Also didn't help that a lot of bosses only had 2 Pokemon for no good reason. But essentially, they didn't add the Frontier to the game because kids these days don't have the time or attention span to play or complete it. Which, yeah, like everyone else has ever said, that is complete bouffant. And if that was even possibly the case, then why add in the Delta episode, all those new battle facilities, and a new island specifically for the copy-pasted Mason? This has never sat right with fans, and there is a really good reason for that. But I feel compelled to speak on the rest of the game before I tell you why, to make sure that it has the impact that I want it to. It's gonna piss you off. It pisses me off, so I know it's gonna piss you off. But the visuals of this game are beautiful. Top-notch work on the 3DS. But you're probably wondering why the game looks so different in a few of the clips I'm showing. And that comes from me just never being satisfied with how the emulator had the game looking. Now, I try to keep these games looking as they would on the console they were made for, but sometimes I feel the need to go beyond that a bit. Kinda like I did with Heart Gold and Soul Silver so that the models in that game weren't so blurry. I did the same with Oraz, but I never got the settings working right till a few hours in. And though I do apologize if there's some blurry, smudgy details that kinda make the game worse in some of those earlier clips, I feel like meddling did bring some interesting results that was well worth the trouble. For instance, with this new HD look I added to the game, I was actually able to see some interesting details that would be completely lost, such as the tie-dyed pattern on Dustock's wings. If you ever get the chance to play the 3DS games, then I would definitely recommend it this way. And now I'm kind of wondering why they never just ported these games to like the Wii U or Switch. I mean, we know the models were future-proofed, but I never realized that a lot of these games were as well. That would have been really easy money and would have given them more time, but we'll go over that later. The storyline is much more detailed, with all kinds of elements such as the evil teams, Steven Stone, and even the Devon Corporation led by Steven's father getting a lot more, well, development. Steven now travels the region researching the powers of Mega Evolution, eventually leading him to the new version of the Dewford Cave, where we see him discussing the mythical powers of the super ancient Pokemon Kyogre and Groudon, and how they had their own versions of this power. And now he's really starting to wonder about this new energy his father's company is creating, but we can get back to that. The villains this time around, oh my god, they are so much more detailed than the GBA originals. Now having goals further than that of just like more land or more ocean. In this game, Maxie believes that more land is the key to human scientific expansion. And to this end, his team now takes on a more calculating and more coordinated outfit, alongside his new cold, calculated new demeanor. Archie now believes that more ocean is the key to revitalizing the lives of Pokemon after human expansion has caused pollution to fill the waterways and corrupt the earth. And now his crew has a more wild pirate attire to them, with tan lines, tattoos, and wild accessories. Like I mentioned before, these were technically their motives in the original games, but here it is expanded upon nicely. Plus, these two are now much less nicer to the player character, even if they're fighting alongside them to stop the other. It's really unfortunate that they both don't get to play the villain in one game, kind of like how Emerald did it, but I'll give it to Oraz, they at least are a lot more interesting threat than they were last time, and now more directly fit in with the idea of climate change as the main theme. Which Oraz actually does a lot to like expand on that. Even having things like their own Captain Planet TV team in like the game world with like cutouts and like little dolls everywhere. Or as I mentioned before with Professor Birch now directly studying the climate in the region. Especially with how it changes with Kyogre and Groudon's appearances. But back to like Team Aqua and Magma, we actually get a lot more character out of like the members individually. Archie and Maxie now like really contrast each other with their goals and their lives, and that's super fun. We even get tidbits of like their previous lives, such as Archie and Shelly at one time meeting the legendary Pokemon Jirachi. Though it's unclear what they would have wished for, and considering Archie just didn't wish for his, his main plan, it makes me wonder what changed in between then and now. Could it have been his first meeting with Maxie? Because they were still on the same team in this continuity. Though, speaking of Shelly, the admins even get in on this, and damn did the Aquas get a glow up. Shelly is wow, and Matt is just straight up body goals. I don't know what he does to that punching bag in that room, but I have got to get the routine. The Magma guys, kinda, okay, I'm not gonna call it like a direct upgrade, but it's definitely like a side grade. They have much more unique designs and, actual personalities compared to like the original versions. But I don't know, there's just something about the classic Courtney that you just won't get me to like over the modern one. But again, they actually have like developed personalities that even parallel their Aqua counterparts. Tabitha and Shelly are the level-headed researchers of the respective teams, who apparently even worked together at the Devon Corporation, and they brought that research to be used in their villain schemes. However, they find information at the Weather Institute that contradicts their previous calculations, showing them that the legendary Pokemon will destroy the planet. With the two of them then coming onto the player's side, they try and talk sense into Maxie and Archie. Courtney and Matt, on the other hand, are obsessed with their leaders, with Matt just being a happy bro willing to crush everything in Archie's path no matter what or who it is, and I think even having a bit of a man crush on him, but that's... Well, actually, no, he just fucking says it at every opportunity. I'm not even gonna act like it's a subtextual thing. He's screaming it, and good for him. Though, judging from their childhood history, Shelly might have already beaten him to the punch, so that might cause some drama. And then we have Courtney, who now is very similar to Matt, but in a different way. She acts really robotic, but she is seriously obsessed with her boss and his goals. And it's kinda creepy, at least in that weird-ass tsundere type of way, but who knows, maybe Maxie's into it. They never really tell us. But hey, this kind of stuff adds more depth to the story and to the teams as a whole. Though, I do kind of wish we would have really focused on the new motivations. Those things are just kind of offhandedly added to the game, so most of the time it's still the more land, more sea thing going on. But hey, they do actually pick up the right colored orbs, so that's good. Thank you, I guess. Which of course brings us to the main legends, and how they have a much more grandiose entrance this time around, as after they're awakened we follow them inside of Origin Cave, and this time we don a little special suit to protect against extreme environments, which was a nice little gift from Maxie or Archie, who aren't really thrilled that a child is the one who's gonna have to save them all, which kind of acknowledges that yeah, this is kind of a bad idea. But anyway, the legendary takes us to this special room in the very core of Hoenn, and we have a final encounter where they activate their primal reversion, which sets them back into a more powerful state, their supposed true forms that did battle in the ancient past. And oh man, this is so cool. The visuals, the music is like a remix of the original battle theme for the legendaries, and then it layers the original battle theme on top of that, and it mixes between. It's so cool, and it reminds me that they're in the future, but their powers are tied to the past. So you use the modern theme, but you tie it back to the music of the past. It's brilliant. It's genius. Peak fiction. Peak cinema. Oh, it just makes me want to go all out against this guy. Oh, damn. I guess Tori had that dog in her. Also, super funny to me that we all had that one experience with the OP Poochyena just bodying legendaries, especially because that one is particularly given to us in the opening hours of the game. I just think that's a funny shared experience. When defeated, a strange green light blasts through the unnatural weather, setting things back to how they should be outside of some minor climate changes of sorts. Wait, was that supposed to have something to do with Rayquaza? Anyway, the new version of the villain plot is pretty interesting, and I like it. I don't know if I'd say it completely fixes what came before in the GBA, especially with how many details it kind of just omits to tell us about, but I found it satisfactory. I just wish a few things were expanded upon a little more, especially with how this ties into X and Y. Okay, so remember how I said Shelly and Tabitha were researchers for Devon? Well, the thing that they were researching was infinite energy. Holy shit. Okay, so, quick reminder if you don't remember the plot of an 11-year-old game, or however old that shit is now. Infinite energy was the same energy that AZ used to stop the Pokemon War. And at some point in time, it seems that he visited the ancient Zootopians, aka the race of people Wallace and Lisa hail from, which actually gave them access to Origin Cave and Sky Pillar, which is how they help us in those games. And we also know that AZ visited the ancient Zootopians because we can see his flower at the base of the tree there, and the old man beside of it pretty much says as such. And then we know that Devon Corporation had at one time been planning to use infinite energy, and a lot of old heads around the region were included on that. A bunch of important men and women like gym leaders like Watson had a hand in this. And we even find all of this out during the new Marvel quest, which is now like post Kyogre and Groudon, where Watson explains how it connected to his ideas of an ideal city like he has now in the remakes. Which, by the way, I like it a lot. I don't know why everyone else seems to hate this redesign. I kind of love it. And this place also has like a miniature Lumiose Tower replica in its center, which is another connection to Kalos. And after helping Watson, he points us towards Sea Marvel, which was the ship they did all of their research on infinite energy on. Apparently, AZ left some of his old schematics with the Sutopians, and then Devon somehow got their hands on that, and now they want to use those old schematics to recreate infinite energy to help save the world from pollution, since infinite energy wouldn't have any of the byproducts from other energy sources. Of course, we go there to New Marvel, and now the place is basically just a crash-shipped turned nature preserve due to a near-extinct species of plant that now grows around it. Here we find tons on tons of research papers signed by men like Devon Co's previous head, Mr. Stone's father, Watson, Captain Stern, Mr. Briney, the father of Professor Cosmo. Professor Cosmo? What, you don't remember him? I guess I don't blame you, his parents don't seem to really remember him either. Oh god, that's really sad if you read all those letters. But he was basically the guy who got his meteor stolen, though keep that meteor in the back of your head as it will be useful later. We learn things like the protocols of the ship, like not being allowed to carry personal Pokemon with you, how you're not supposed to ask questions, how you're supposed to worship something called the Master, and then we get to see the results of the experiments they were producing. Of course, like, things went awry and the place blew up, and now we have this new area, which is a remix of the abandoned ship in Ruby. But okay, Chubby. This is cool and all, but why are you bringing attention to this? What is infinite energy, and why is it a problem that they study it and even seem to use it still in rockets at Moss Deep? Well, my friends, infinite energy is Pokemon souls. Oh yeah, Pokemon souls! These guys were trying to make like an infinite battery out of Pokemon death. And we know this for sure because Pokemon like Ho-Oh, you know, the Pokemon of Rebirth, is available on this ship. And it doesn't stop there, as Spiritomb, the Pokemon made of multiple lost and trapped souls, is also here. Watson and a lot of other characters were a part of some large corporation/cult called Greater Marvel Holdings that used Pokemon souls to power the region of Hoenn. But their plans fell through when somebody leaked what they're doing to the public. And then, of course, since what they're doing is extremely fucked up and awful, it eventually like melted down. And then Sea Marvel started to sprout up all these rare plants, which I'm sure is just like the byproduct of Pokemon souls being drained into the environment. And then their company song. God bless this, and I quote, this goes basically, 1. The daybreak shines on Route 108. Wake up, our towering fort. For the bright future of Hoenn, we won't take our days off. We'll dig through, dig our great energy. Ah, Sea Marvel, Sea Marvel, Sea Marvel. 2. The bright light shines on Route 108. Intensely shiny, our fort. Swear your selfless devotion. Unionization is out of the question. Dig through, dig out our great energy. Ah, Sea Marvel, Sea Marvel, Sea Marvel. 3. Darkness descends on Route 108. Tonight again sleepless, our fort. Drive away our competitors. We won't take our overtime pay. Dig through, dig out great energy. Ah, Sea Marvel, Sea Marvel, Sea Marvel. Okay, look, I don't have a way to tie this back into the greater plot of Oras's Hoenn, other than the fact that the evil teams used infinite energy to make that suit. But I also like to think this brings up the idea that big corporations are the actual enemy, which is a really good idea for an enemy when you're discussing climate change. But like, let's be real, this is a fucking QAnon conspiracy theory. Oprah drinking baby souls under the Dairy Queen type shit. I don't know what's going on with Game Freak, but they will write the most interesting, most unimaginably cool plotline you've ever heard in your life, And it's just the background information for the tangentially related funny pirate man. I mean, really, I think the only time any shade is thrown on Devon for all of this is literally like one line by the antagonist of the Delta episode, which we'll move on to because I don't know where to go with all of this information, except that Game Freak really need to stop holding out on us and give us either the crazy war story or the crazy cult story, because they're clearly holding these back, and I've gotta see what they do with it. Also, why is the X and Y ghost girl here? Who are you waiting on? Oh, for God's sakes. ZA better fucking deliver, boys. These mysteries are literally a decade old, and it bugs me. The Delta episode. Sometime after we defeated Kyogre, Sapphire goes back home and... Wait, did I ever mention her name? Who cares? Norman gives us and Brendan tickets to watch the upcoming meteor shower. However, we are stopped by the latest terrorist in town, Zinnia. Though, if you've been paying attention, then you know she ain't new. Zinnia is a character who's been appearing since the beginning of the game as a member of Team Aqua, and she's been spying around on the player and the evil teams, as she seems to have her own, let's say, plans? Okay, I get. But Zinnia does have her own plans, though, and she goes about them by mugging Megastone users at their house or on the street. Why? I don't know, but it's kind of funny, though we can save that for later. As for now, Cosmo and the boys call us the new champion in on some official business. Apparently, there is a meteor coming that will wipe out the entire Earth. Oh. So we're called in to assist the Devon Corporation's plans. Here, Devon basically admits that his grandfather was the one who commissioned the production of infinite energy. Wait, grandfather? How old are you? Wait, better question. How old is Stern, Briney, and Watson if they were working with his grandfather all those years ago? Well, if AZ is anything to go by, they might actually be immortal. Excuse me? Anywho, we filled this rocket up with infinite energy to use— Hold on, you're gonna blow up the meteor with a rocket filled with Pokemon souls? No, that'd be stupid. We're going to use a rocket full of Pokemon souls to send it to another dimension. Excuse me? We're calling it the link cable, But then Zinnia comes in and she's like, hey. Why is everyone crushing on me in this game? But then she's like, you dipshits, you can't do that. You'd just be making the same AZ did a millennia ago, but way worse, as you'd be dooming another version of Hoenn with no warning. And they're like, hold on, did you just confirm multiverse theory? And she's like, pepperoni and cheese, bitch. So basically, there is another version of Hoenn out there with no mega evolution, and if we send this meteor to hit them with no warning, then they'd be less prepared to handle the situation. Basically confirming a theory that went wild around the fan base at this time, or maybe it was just something I came up with. I really can't remember, it's been so long. But basically, it was that all the Pokemon games were in their own contained universes. Basically, my copy of Ruby is one universe, and your copy of Ruby is another, which I always thought was a pretty interesting way to handle this type of idea. You know, years before the concept got popular and was then milked to death. But hey, do we actually ever do anything with the idea of the Pokeverse? Well, that depends on your concept of the word do. Excuse me, taking this! Zinnia crushes the link cable, severing our potential multiverse plan, and then forces us to go after her. We end up catching up with her in Meteor Falls, where we learn her backstory, and the one of her people, the Draconids, which is completely different from the 8 other dragon clans, I promise. Basically, Zinnia is something called a lore keeper. Lore keepers are Draconids that preserve the history of their race, as well as be a guardian of sorts for Rayquaza. They are the ones who would summon it in times of need, such as the first rampage of the Primal Legends, and all the other times the Earth was threatened. Which is kind of odd, considering Wallace's people seems to have domain over Sky Pillar, but okay. But then it's revealed that they use their power to introduce Mega Evolution to the world through Rayquaza, which kind of contradicts the Lucario stuff in X and Y, but okay. And now it's time for Zinnia to summon Rayquaza once more to deal with the meteorite. You see, this type of thing has happened a lot before, And the latest lore keeper is well aware of the sacrifices levied at the earth. And in fact, she would levy it at her own heart, which is a really badass thing to say. Whoa, not that way. At least I don't think, but okay. Basically, Zinnia would sacrifice everything, including herself, to do her duty, which presumably is what happened to the previous lore keeper by the name of Aster, who was supposed to be like somebody with special powers that previously held the title before Zinnia, and that was actually all revealed in the Nintendo Dream article with Amori. Which I'm really glad he cleared things up, because I had all these like weird multiverse fan theories, going around, just trying to figure out what this whisper was to Zinnia. Like, was it her mom, or her bestie, or child, or something? I don't know, maybe like a Mystery Dungeon soul swap? No, she just named it after her friend who died, I guess. But whatever it was, she was important, and Zinnia can't seem to let go. The new lore keeper's first plan was to force Rayquaza to appear by using the resurrection of the primal legends, but when that seemed to have failed, she instead started to collect Mega Stones as a sort of offering. But that plan ends up failing because Rayquaza isn't able to Mega Evolve without its stone, leaving its power insufficient to destroy the meteorite. Oh hey, speaking of meteorites, yep, the random rock the player's been carrying the whole game turns out to be the exact rock we need, and Rayquaza swallows it, and for some reason he can now Mega Evolve, and now he wants to fight the player. I guess to like prove our worth, like to capture... maybe we don't need this thing to destroy the meteorite. Well, after multiple attempts to not kill Rayquaza in one hit, we don our super suit and ride off on the Titan Pokemon, blasting through the atmosphere and even shattering the meteorite in one blow. The visuals are beautiful, the music is pumping, there is no way this can get any cool... Deoxys! Oh my god, you've got to understand. I have never had the chance to own a Deoxys till this game, and man, I was so damn hyped. I love his inclusion here as the ultimate final fight after everything we've been through. We're finally paying off all those promises for a fight in space, and I can't wait to catch this. God damn it! Ow! Tori! With Deoxys, unfortunately, defeated, peace is restored to the Hoenn region. Everyone does a little final goodbye, and we even see Zinnia, now free from her responsibilities, go off into the world to find herself. Or become a cosplayer, I don't know what she's up to these days. And that's the Delta episode. A fun little emerald bow tie to wrap up this honestly really fun reworking of the Gen 3 story. I'm not going to sit here and say it was perfect, but the fun little victory lap of sorts is good, and I was glad to go on it. It introduced a lot of fun ideas for the series to never use again. It brought Zinnia in, who's become something of a fan favorite now, and it had Matt. For some reason, I don't really care to remember his role in all of this. It was just kind of a filler fight here and there. The Delta episode's cool, and the story of Orhas is good. A nice reworking of the originals with an added touch of flavor here and there. I really ain't got nothing to say about Brendan and May other than it's cool our first and final battle was at the pond from the opening, I kind of like that. Okay, now the next part of this script says, and I quote, "Talk about Wally." So, you want to talk about Wally. Let me tell you sons of bitches something about my man. My fucking guy. As a man, I gotta admit, I'm not the ride or die type. It's unfortunate, but it's true. I don't jump into frays that have nothing to do with me. I stay in my lane, I follow the laws, I do as I'm told. But when I tell you that if this child ordered the ashes of the planet Earth, I wouldn't hesitate to set the world ablaze and then bow my head to my liege. Wally's name shall never, ever be slandered in this house. If Wally has 100 fans, I'm one. If Wally has no fans, that means I have passed, and I am currently scraping my way out of the depths of the underworld, for the damned will not hold me as I have a true master to serve. Is that a bit much?
Maybe.
But only if you are unaware of his true story. It begins very similar to the original 3 games. Wally is but a small child suffering from an illness. We help him capture a Pokemon and then we battle him at the 3rd gym as we did before. But from there, things go a tad bit differently, as he feels unworthy to call us his rival, but he promises that's gonna change. My first encounter with the supposedly changed Wally came when I saw his name carved into the gym statue of Flannery's gym long before I made it there. Oh, he didn't just follow in my footsteps. That motherfucker lapped me. And then you hear all about a certain trainer's exploits on the Pokénav, and how the region's really impressed with him. And obviously, it's gotta be talking about me, right? The guy beating back the cultists, the gyms, becoming a world-class pageant mom. No, they're talking about Wally. He's making some serious waves in this region. Then, after defeating my father once more, who comes to greet us but Wally and his father? Wally even offering to escort us to Mauville as he's already defeated Norman, and was just waiting for us to arrive. Now, usually I'd never take these stupid fast travels they added to the game, because I want to explore everything. I don't want none of this hand-holding nonsense, but I never skip this one. As when we go, our fathers have a nice little chat about parenthood, while Wally's like, hey, I wanted to battle you since we're so close in strength, but even with his new achievements, he just doesn't feel worthy enough to battle us as equals. But he does promise to fight us later at the top. And it's at this point I just lose all respect for May and Brendan, cause why isn't this the main rival, the character we're focusing on? And then after Kyogre is defeated, who do we see but Wally standing at Victory Road ready to challenge us for real? Oh my god. And after trekking through that monstrous cave, we meet up with Wally in this pristine field of glorious flowers. And you know the air is crisp in this place. We are fighting old boy at his best. And his main theme blends into his new battle theme, and I can't stand how fucking good this song is. The rock, the roll, the defiance. This child is defiant. And it's revealed that his new ace Pokemon is Gallade. Now, why doesn't he use Gardevoir like the one he did in the originals? Well, remember what I said about Ralts being the perfect Mon for him? Ralts and its evolutions are very empathic. They care a lot about their trainers. And Gardevoir is the perfect Pokemon for original Wally. Its Japanese name is Sir Knight, and that's exactly how it acts, even going as far as to create black holes if it will protect its trainer. This Pokemon is perfect for a Wally that hits his limit and stops there. A Wally who got farther than he ever thought possible, but some limits can't be broken. Gardevoir held his hand the whole way, staking its life to make sure he was safe. And let me be clear, there is nothing wrong with hitting your limit and stopping there. That's fine. What OG Wally did was impressive. I'm not taking anything away from that child. But this Wally is different. He hit his limit, and he hit it again. And again. And again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again, until it broke! This Wally doesn't need a protector, he needed a Pokemon that would push him. And Gallade was that Pokemon. This evolution of Ralts is not the same kind of Knight. It's protective, sure, but it needs a trainer that pushes him to his limits. And that's exactly what Wally did, bringing on their own form of Mega Evolution. Wally and Gallade have broken through all of their barriers. If Wally wanted, he could have went on and became the champ before we even got to Evergrande, and I believe that wholeheartedly. But champion was never his end goal. You were. This is his story, and you're his rival. And even then, when you beat him, because of course you do, because his Pokemon can't read minds like ours, he takes it in stride, saying thank you for not holding back on him, and that he will now reach your level. You're not coming back to him, he's reaching towards you. Oh my god, a man after my own heart. He has 2 post-game teams in his rematches at the Maison. One is just a fully evoed version of his usual team because he didn't know Magnezone or Rose Raid existed. But the second one is after he went to 2 other regions and defeated their champions. Oh! And his story doesn't stop as a super boss in the postgame. In the next game, Sun and Moon, a new battle facility called the Battle Tree shows up. And who's there but the strongest of the strong? Elite Four members, champions, evil team leaders, even world-class masters like Red and Blue, who are head and shoulders above any other trainer, are there to prove it once more. And guess who's standing right there beside them? That's right, Wally! He didn't stop with us. We were a stepping stone. The beginning of his journey of becoming a world-class master trainer. I have no words. If all of that wasn't enough to convince you that Wally is the best Pokemon rival, then I will not allow any more of my words to fall on such deaf ears. Wally is the best rival in Pokemon, and that's that. Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are very interesting games. They add a lot to the games they were remaking and ultimately surpassed them outside of like a few hiccups or some odd shit that I just didn't really have the time to really delve into. Seriously, what's up with Regigigas in this game? Was Braille not convoluted enough? Ice cream. What is he, hungry? But that being said, a lot of people can't appreciate what ORAS has done as it's failed to surpass Emerald in a lot of people's eyes. And I can kind of understand that. I don't agree, but I understand where you're coming from. Parts of this game feel like they're begging for more, and a lot of that ties back to Emerald. Even with a whole post-game venture based loosely on it, it still feels like there should be more. And that's because there probably was going to be. But there was a big problem standing in their way. Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire had 1 year of development time. Surely I don't need to explain why that is a paltry amount of time for any project, much less one of this level of importance to its fans. I can't even begin to tell you how excited people were for a remade Hoenn. For a good few years, it is all anyone would talk about, until it was Sinnoh's turn and now we don't even know if we want them anymore. When I learned it took 1 year of dev time, I was just floored. I wanted to do this big freak out scene for this video and have it be all elaborate and all that, but that's just unnecessary. I think the information speaks for itself. And it makes a lot of the 3DS generation's nonsense make a lot more sense in hindsight. But that can wait. For ORAS, I hope that tidbit really puts into perspective how impressive this game is. In 1 year, they remade a 3D version of Hoenn, barely used any assets from Pokemon X and Y, except for like the Pokemon in like 3 areas. They wrote a better version of Ruby and Sapphire's story. They redesigned the characters to look better. They made perfect use of a more powerful sound chip to just flex their amazing music skills. They made one of the arguably best Pokemon games in a year. I genuinely believe Game Freak is one of the best video game developers ever, but they are constantly kneecapped by these arbitrary timelines for new game releases. By the time this video comes out, we'll probably have a new ZA trailer or something, but the one we got in February, the most exciting part of that was that it was coming out next year. What other team does these foolish yearly releases? Yakuza? Oh fuck me, they have 2 teams and reuse 90% of their assets. COD? Oh please, they have 3 teams that work around the clock and collaborate with one another. Sports game? I can't even finish that one. We all know how far they've fallen. Can't even be bothered to change an icon image. Ugh. In spite of everything, ORAS came out and was an amazing title. And I think Game Freak deserves much better than a 7 out of 10 for too much water in a tropical Okay, I'm joking. I'm sorry. That was just too easy. But seriously, good job, Game Freak. I tip my hat to you, but due to time constraints, I can't really take it off because there's no customization. Ugh. No wonder they took a year off after this one. They really should be taking like 3, you know? No RPG series should be this frequent. It does nothing but hurt it. But you know, that's the Hoenn region, home to some of the most beloved Pokemon games ever released. I can't personally say they're my favorites, but they're definitely up there, you know? Just a solid region with a solid story, with a solid cast of characters, gameplay, music, that reminds us why we love this series as much as we do. But that's enough out of me. I love Hoenn, and you probably do too. Here's the rankings if you're any at all curious. I know, not very surprising as I basically told y'all where everything would be from jump, but it's nice to have a new chart, ain't it? As for my teams, my Ruby team comprised of a group named after fast food mascots. Colonel the Blaziken was an amazing starter for the team. With its fiery attacks and wonderful fighting prowess, obviously there's a reason why this type combo became the default for the next 2 gens. It's a strong one. Big Boy the Slacking was the cutest little patootie in all the contests, and the strongest bastard ever built on the battlefield. Yeah, you can see why this was our father's Pokemon of choice. It needs to be kneecapped by that awful ability, as if it didn't, it would be like the most broken monster in the series. It already outclasses most legendaries, yeesh. Captain the Sea King was an odd choice for my Hoenn team, but when I was younger, I had like a chain capture like 2 Shiny Goldeen and Orez and X and Y, so Sea King has kind of just became like a Hoenn staple for me. Captain had elegance on the contest stage that many couldn't help but find alluring. Grimace the Muck would have been a lot funnier if the Grimace Shake was still around. Probably should have done my first idea of Arby's. Anywho, I once did a playthrough of just Blaziken and Muck, and that duo wrecked house all over Hoenn. If I had to have Blaziken on my team, then it's only right that I have his right hand to join him, no matter how slimy he is. I kid, I love this Pokemon. Andy the Sandshrew was the epitome of David versus Goliath, taking every chance to show its true strength and how it was far superior than its opponents. It never backed down from a fight, and it was also literally the cutest thing I've ever seen. I'm still low-key obsessed with Sandshrew because of the Gen 3 sprites. Look how cute he is, that's just not fair. Cafe the Tropius was a late addition, but a welcome one. I wasn't entirely sure what moves would work on this thing, but to my surprise, Steel Wing was very useful. And ultimately, this Pokemon rounded out my team quite well, and I was happy to have him. For Emerald, we started out with Blades the Sceptile, such an amazingly cool looking design, and such a powerful Pokemon. Sometimes I go a while without remembering about Sceptile, but when I see it again, it just floors me with how cool it is. Small wonder why it was Ash and Child Me's choice when it came to Hoenn. Shade the Shedinja. My, do I have a history with you. Shedinja has always been an underrated favorite of mine, even before its rise in prominence during the heyday of Smogon Gen 9 Anything Goes. I love Shedinja's unique playstyle of being effectively immortal as long as the opponent doesn't have something super effective against it. Put moves like Flash or Sand Attack on this bad boy and your opponent may as well call it quits there. I actually had a Shedinja sitting cutie when those first came out years ago. But unfortunately, during that time, I was going through a serious mental breakdown. The early 2020s will do that, I'm afraid, and not helping matters was it was kind of related to my religion, and for some reason, I thought the doll was possessed. Why? I don't know. It was one of those things where I knew what I was doing was very stupid, but I just couldn't stop. Ugh. It's not fun times to remember, but somebody close to me got rid of it, and now I'm kind of too ashamed to buy any more of that line of Pokemon toys. I really have grown a lot in those last few years. Definitely for the better, though. I'm sharing this here because I wanted to let people know that sometimes weird, embarrassing shit happens, but you can get past it. I thought I'd never get out of that mental hell, but I did, and you can too, at least if you want to. It's just not very easy. And in a way, Shedinja kind of represents that with its interesting evolution method. It's a literal embodiment of the baggage we leave behind as it's based on a cicada's shedded exoskeleton. Still probably should have kept that doll because it was, if I remember right, they were kind of expensive, but it's It's probably for the better I leave that type of shit behind me. Mekazuki the Aggron, the literal rival to Tyranitar they try to replace time and time again. But in my heart, you shall never be replaced, you big monstrous kaiju, you. I love Aggron, it's just so cool. Whiskers the Wishcash, a straight up underrated Pokemon that I think is just people are like ignoring on principle because it's not Quagsire or Gastrodon or even Seismitoad. There's a reason this thing keeps appearing on Elite Four teams. Just use it, this fish is great. Way too underrated. Fangs the Seviper. It's cool. I've always liked snakes, and one with a blade for a tail would have always been a really cool Pokemon to me, but that on top of its relationship with Zangoose being this really interesting, like, natural rival sort of, I like it. I think that's really fun. I wish they did that more. Well, I mean, they kind of do with, like, Durant and Heatmore and Corsola and that one Gen's 8 Pokemon? I don't know. I'm not going to look it up. This video needs to get done, and we're so close. Chikorita the Bayonet. Yeah, a Pokemon based on discarded dolls, but I didn't name it after the Shedinja doll I lost. Yeah, I didn't really think about that till I was writing this section, actually. The name actually comes from like a real Chikorita doll I had like accidentally lost as a child, though I think my parents actually got rid of it when I wasn't looking. My mom just had a habit from doing that. And so this is the form of my beloved doll, who I hope isn't here to kill me for not putting it in Zuki in the game with Mega Evolution, but what are you gonna do? For my Alpha Sapphire team, I started off with Zora the Swampert, named after the Zelda enemy, which is actually funny because I typically name my HM Goon Zelda, but I think those two are from the same playthrough. You see, KFC, Zora, and Blades were the names of the starters of my, 3+ solo starter runs through the 3 Hoenn games. I don't know why I play that way so often in Hoenn, but man, it's fun and I had to represent those 3 boys in this video. Tori the Mightyena. Alright, I promised you lore, and here it is. When I was younger, I got a dog for my birthday that I named after the girl in Victorious, cause why not? The dog was a hyper adorable little demon that I loved a lot, but I was horribly scared of it, like bad scared. Everything scared me back then. It's always been a problem in my life, and I was never the owner I wanted to be for her. Eventually, we moved away from home and that dog was left to live with my grandfather. Eventually, over time, I failed to really face my fear and actually love that dog. And eventually, it passed with cancer in all 4 of its legs. My papaw had to put her down himself and bury her somewhere. I was a terrible owner of that dog, and it's something I regret till this day. It was just happy and wanted to play, but it would scratch me or bite me. And it didn't mean to do that, but it made me scared, and it pretty much made me not want to do anything with it. I was just a kid, I didn't understand till it was like way too late. I had always liked Mightyena as a kid, and that Mond looked a lot like her. Funnily enough, me and Tori would watch Pokemon together in my house a time or two before she got bigger and hyper. So I always named my Mightyena after her till this day. I have no pictures of her sadly, but if you need a mental image, she was like an Australian German Shepherd mix. Which, yeah, probably explains the high energy. I'm grown now and I'm nowhere near as scared as I was, so if I get another dog, I promise I'll treat it better. Rest in peace, Tori, I miss you. Also, you're really strong and you really deserve all those treats. Luna the Dustox. Man, have you gotten the feeling that I like to use underrated Pokemon in my playthroughs? It's a bit of a point of pride for me to take something that people would call weak and then train them to be stupid strong. And with moves like Quiver Dance, Venoshock, and Bug Buzz, I find Dustox to be a sleeper hit in need of some apologies from those who would dare look down on my Mothra. Which probably would have been a better name, but I already have that saved for another Pokemon later. Mystery the Dusknoir. One of the few Generation 3 Mons to receive a new evolution, I knew I had to use it for this playthrough. Doubly so because we were in the middle of my Explorers of Sky streams while I recorded this, and having my Dusknoir with a green scarf that it wore in contests was too good of a reference opportunity to miss out on. I love this creepy villainous Pokemon. He does not get enough love. Cupcake the Salamence. Yeah, remember when I mentioned a playthrough of Y where all the Pokemon I caught, ironically got a new Mega and Oraz? Yeah, Cupcake was one of them, and he's named after the fact that I caught him while waiting with my mom who worked in a cupcake shop. Cupcake was always a Pokemon I had headcanoned as having like a Sugar Rush mode, where it's hyper, it had rainbow eyes, and I don't know, man, I was a child of the 2000s, what do you want from me? But I also always remember headcanoning that form as being stronger than Mega Salamence, especially with its combo move, Flying Meteor Fang Blast, which was basically all 4 of its moves just combined together, and I used that exact same moveset to defeat Zinnia's Mega Salamence. I'm sure Child Chubby is so happy that I made that a reality. Very creative looking move for a child, if I must say so myself. Throw down the Bouffalant. Again, I love underrated Mons, he's got a funny nickname, and I had to have at least one post-Hoenn Pokemon on these teams that wasn't a Mega or an Evolution. Throwdown was a lot of fun, good physical attack, good bulk. I like Bouffalant, it's a cool Pokemon. Also, special shoutouts to Caroline the cosplay Pikachu and Sophie the Latias. They were good filler spots while I build up the rest of this team, and that's where that little reference in the Kanto video is from. I said it'd be funny later, but I guess it's not. But I do love me a good Southern Belle, and darling, that dress is adorable. Or fucking, I'm so tired. Why did I make such a long fucking video? Overall, my teams were Hoenn, were fun to use, and honestly, pretty personal for me, which I didn't really expect. Well, that's another region down in this little retrospective we're doing. But we're not done with Generation 3 just yet, as next time we'll be talking about... actually, I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm feeling pretty confident about expanding this series into a few more spin-off Pokemon games. You know, maybe not all of them, but just the ones that are kind of important to me. That being said, no matter what we do, we'll be in Generation 3 a while, so get ready, as we'll be tackling some of the oddest and most favorited side ventures in all of Pokemon. And I hope y'all will join me as we do it. I was gonna say see y'all next time, but I already said see y'all there, so fuck it all. I'm so tired. Why? I've gotta stop making these long fucking videos. It's just too much. It's just too much!